6:30. Here we are, Rusty Hooks Live episode. What did I say it was 26?
That's what I told you it was.
26? You don't know.
I don't know.
Are we live for real?
We
Are
are
we
live.
live?
There's your question of the night.
Are we still live?
We are.
I had to
All right.
ask.
We are, and we're live tonight in studio with the North Carolina Bass Conservation Director, William Frazier, who I understand has been
Yes.
doing this for about 12 years or so.
Yes, sir.
So William, for our viewers, well, I guess before we get there, we do have two giveaways tonight. So
Yeah, let's do that first.
go ahead and get those knocked out. So the Waterwood Crankbait giveaway, we had a bunch of shares, likes on that. Thanks for everybody's participation. And we do have a winner. His name is Mike Hicks. So Mike, reach out to us, and you will get this special, what's that color called?
Oh, yeah.
SL Special.
SL Special Colored Crankbait. And we
That's
do have
right.
it right here. It's in a BDS2. I know it's hard to see, but we have it right here in-house tonight. And then our third week of our 1,000 Likes giveaway, which features AFCO, Yamagatsu, Sunline, Spro. I'm missing one.
Big Bite Baits.
Big Bite
There you
Baits. That's our third week of it. We do have 5 weeks, so find that post, like it, share it to get eligible to be entered in that. We have another Mike Langford. So again, thanks for your participation in that, and we will get rolling on. Contact us, and I guess most of those guys are probably local still. If they're not, we can we do ship. So sorry, Frazier.
We do ship, he said.
Back to your introduction. So tonight we do have like I said, the North Carolina Bass Conservation Director William Frazier in the house with us. And you've been doing that for about 12 years or so. For our viewers that don't know you, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Professionally, I'm a water quality manager. It's for 36 years. I've been working for a local utility. I've got a very broad-based background in water quality, light management, public health, waste management. And the short answer as to what that is more or less I'm a forensic chemist for anything in the environment.
Okay.
If it's there, our job's to find it, fix it, and move on
Okay.
quickly. What I do, a couple of people don't get sick, everybody gets sick. So
Right.
That's good.
it's something where you don't make mistakes. It's just the way it works. With BASS, I've been doing this with them formally for 12 years, but I've been fishing club level stuff for BASS for going on 40 years.
Okay.
It's just what I enjoy. I've worked extensively with those guys with open tournaments, elites. I am on my, I think, 11th Bassmaster Classic. I'm the guy under Trip Weldon's feet.
How about that?
When
The
they,
guy the fish disappeared to?
that's right, that's right. That is a really great system these guys have worked out over the years with the help of the conservation directors, lots of us from different states. And ultimately, what it boiled down to is we found a faster way to get them back to the water trucks.
Okay.
And I volunteer for that service under there, one, because I'm a little guy and it's not even as high as this table. It's very cramped, but to me, it's that most important key in Bass's commitment to conservation. Still a lot of questions about it, but we want to make sure on the professional side that we're that first step. I've got some great folks that help me with that every year. We call them the Fish Care Dream Team. They've kind of become a fixture, and the bass people look for us to help. So it's kind of my way of being a wannabe again. So I'm good with that.
So first question about that. So we have some young viewers that tune in every week. So if someone's interested in doing that, how do they get started? How did you get started?
Show up.
Show up.
I've been to almost half of the Bassmasters Classics.
Okay.
I've marshaled. I've done all kinds of things. I mean, I've had some incredible experiences, and it's just show up. It's amazing that the BASS organization is about its members, and after a while, they get to know your face. You don't have to be a pest or anything else. They know you're there.
Right.
With us, I can't tell you how many tournaments I've worked probably the most notorious one was a Bass Nation championship about 4 or 5 years ago down at Hartwell, where our fish care people showed up in the parking lot to say they weren't going to show up.
Oh my Lord.
And we didn't have anybody to care for fish. I went down there just to enjoy the tournament. The next thing you know, I'm helping with
They
the.
put you to work.
They put me to work, but then I had to find people. If you see a solid yellow BASS hat with nothing but the emblem on it, that's a volunteer hat, and it's kind of like a ticket. These young people that are out there in that audience, if they want to help with that weigh-in and running fish, somebody's going to ask you at the first of the tournament, hey, anybody want to help? And the next thing you know, you got a yellow hat for life. You show up, you're in.
Yeah, I know for the Federation stuff, I've handed plenty of bags of fish to the yellow hat guys.
Sure.
And those are actually coming up here soon.
Yeah.
We'll cover those later
That's
on.
great. That's great that you guys are noticing that, because that's what those guys are, is volunteers, and they want to be close. They want to learn. They want to understand the process, and
Sure.
that's why we're here.
Well, that's good to know. So if anybody's interested in that, you'll have a chance to volunteer here at the I guess coming October, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've we've had some pretty interesting experiences, and there's some great people out there, friends that I've made over the years. Good contact people that are always there for us, but we're always ready to meet more, man, especially the young people.
Sure.
One of the commitments I made when I took the conservation director's job is anything and everything we do in our 5-part conservation platform, which is on the BASS website, I'm going to find a way to get a young person involved, and we've done that. We've been
Okay.
very successful.
Is that split up? So are the conservation guys, are they split up by region or by state? They're
There's
split up by
42
state.
conservation directors. This jersey is basically I tease the people at Bass about our being a clown suit, but basically the only people that can get this jersey are conservation directors.
Okay.
So if you see this jersey, it's a state conservation director from someplace.
I got you. Well, I'll be proud of that one. It sounds like it's a little bit harder to get.
Yeah, it is.
There's probably a lot fewer more of those, or a lot
Well,
fewer.
I can tell you. Well, the thing about that is they're very noticeable. If anybody that's ever been to a Elite Series weigh-in, Elite Series event, whatever around, if you see that jersey, 9 out of 10 times it's Gene Gilliland, and there's no mistaking who it is. You don't have to see his name on it; you know who it is. And I mean, that's great recognition. You know, you guys should be recognized. You do a great service for bass and all fishermen, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. That's what we're there for. I mean, I've had incredible relationships with the professional anglers, and if I want them to understand what you just said, you see this jersey, you got a problem with the fish or something
Right.
you need or something like that, ask us. We're there to volunteer and help. So
Well, he's there to take care of the real movie stars,
Who?
the fish.
Oh yeah.
If the fish don't show up, nobody's gonna watch.
That's right.
You can get up there and say anything you want,
It don't matter.
but if the fish aren't there, no one's gonna watch.
Nobody cares.
No, they're the real stars.
That's right.
there's something else with that too that I want to throw in since you brought that up. This year, every year we've added something to that conservation platform at the Classic. This year, what the folks down in Alabama did was they actually contained the fish.
Okay.
Because there's so much conversation about delayed mortality. They put them in ponds, and they kept them for about a week, 10 days, something like that, and watched them. No delayed mortality. The fish are more rugged than we're giving
Really,
them.
that's I didn't even know that.
I
That's
would have
cool.
never done that.
That's good to
You would've
know.
told us.
Yeah, we're going above and beyond.
Yeah,
we're
I'd
trying
say.
to take a
I
step.
mean, and you're right. There was a lot of conversation about how far the fish were being moved to and from Gunnersville. You know, back to Birmingham. It's like it's about an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive.
Mhm.
Pretty good little ride, and there was a lot of talk about that. So that's good to know that that you guys were doing that for the fish.
So what can you merit that to? So, when tournament angling became big, I will call it. It used to be 10 fish limits, and I mean those guys brought them on a stringer, right? I mean they weighed them in, and I guess they had a big fish fry. Afterwards.
Right.
So the delayed mortality, obviously, that's a whatever you want to call it,
It's a theory that
a
people
theory
use.
or wives' tale, whatever you want to call it. So that came from somewhere, right?
Well, I think it's a fair assessment. I'm going to try to answer your question in 2 parts. First, tournament prep. You've been in an Elite Series, you've been in Classics. You know that there's ice at that ramp when you get there.
Always.
And there's always a step in there when you get to the actual, wherever you're going to weigh in, they're going to pull those fish out. They're going to bump them. They're going to put them back. They're going to make sure the ice is there.
Yep.
Great care is taken keeping those fish out of the water as little as possible. Then it goes through the weigh-in. We've got a process where basically from the time I see on the camera monitor the fishermen come out of the boat, I hold my breath. And I want the bulk of those fish back in the tote under the stage and on a trolley that we've got under there on the way back out to the water truck by the time I lose my breath.
Right.
So it's just, I'm trying to think of the fish that way. Sometimes it doesn't happen with the bigger fish, they hold them up. Now, let's take the bad side, okay? Because lots of people accuse me of being negative. I'm not negative. I'm a pragmatist, good and bad, I've seen tournaments that were not handled that way lose fish both at the weigh-in and in delayed mortality. The number one call I get in North Carolina is from people at the lake saying, man, we got a bunch of dead fish down here.
Yep.
And then the year after that, they're like, well, those folks are coming back. Would you come down and observe the weigh-in? If it's not my organization, I can wear the jersey and I can make a presence and I can talk to them. And the guys are receptive. But the simple fact of the matter is I can't tell you how many times I've seen, especially codes, stop, weigh their fish in, put it in a bag dry,
Yes.
and then stop and talk to their buddies. Don't do it, man. Let that fish loose. If you don't care about the fish, care about the reputation of the tournaments that you're participating in, because it reflects on them.
Yep.
That's what you got to really work on.
And that was one of the things that we really 2 years ago in New York, I'm sure Barb Elliott.
Yes, sir.
That was one of the things up there that they are sticklers for. Now Barb comes down, and especially the new guys coming in, they are required. The first year they did it, they required the whole field, go catch a fish, bring it back. She's going to get in your boat and she'll show you how to fizz the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And and that all happened because the year before that they killed, I don't know how many it was, but it was quite a few fish. And then there was another tournament series that went out of the Canada side over there. They picked up 300 and some fish that this other tournament organization had killed, and they're like, wait a minute. It takes a long time to grow a 4 to 5 pound smallmouth.
Yep.
We can't go out here and kill 300 of them in a week's time.
Right.
So, they in turn got with Bass, and now Bass is doing everything they can to help people to take care of that resource. And that is very important, especially when we go back to, Waddington is the best example. You go back there year after year after year because it's good for Bass, it's good for Waddington, it's good for everybody. But we want to be welcomed back when we come. We don't want the locals at the store going, God, here they are again. They're going to kill all our fish.
Right.
So,
I understand.
that being said, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't know about that try to protect those fish.
Yes, sir. A great deal.
You know what, though? It is a good model that other tournament trails, FLW, BFLs, yeah, we do it on the Elite Series. It's great. It's good for you guys. But when you come to BFL at Wiley, how many fish end up floating the next day? Because, yeah, they got tanks there, and they got people releasing the fish, but the guys that are releasing the fish, half of them, I would consciously say with good judgment that they don't know how to fizz fish. And they just get shoved down the tube, and they're floating in the marine over here, and 24 hours, they're toast.
So I'll say something about that. And so I don't want to say I don't fish deep, because I
That would be a lie.
do occasionally.
That would be a lie.
But I do know how to fizz fish, right? And I've stayed around in other tournaments and have caught them after they've been released, because a lot of the release wells, they won't let you do them there for some reason. I don't know why, but they won't let you do it. And obviously, when you're fishing a tournament, there is a chance that you're going to kill them, right? When you do it.
Sure.
And we've debated about this a lot, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
fizzing versus not fizzing. Does fizzing kill them? There's all kinds of
If done
theories
improperly, yeah.
and stuff out
Yeah,
there.
it's
that-
pretty well stick a needle in them and they die if you don't
Yeah.
do it right.
Well, if you stick it too deep, if the needle fills up with blood, they're gone. I mean, that's just the way it is.
You've bailed me out before several times.
But I will, and us as anglers, I think, need to do a better job of policing ourselves, right? I mean, Fish your buddy's fish. Just stay around instead of BSing in the parking lot. Catch them after they get out of the release tube and fizz them. Let them go.
That's right.
It's not hard to do. I prefer to do it through their mouth, through their crushers, as opposed to the side. I know you don't know this, Frazier, but I've got a pretty extensive saltwater reef tank at my house. I wish that those fish were as hardy as bass that you're saying, because if those things aren't acclimated right, they cost a lot more money than bass do too. But I see guys sticking it in their side, and there's just something about dropping a fish back in the water when it's 90 degrees outside with a hole in his side and all the bacteria and stuff that I would assume that a wound in his mouth is probably better for him than one in his side. Is that a correct assumption, or?
What we're finding with some of the latest research, Dr. Hal Schramm has done some incredible stuff. I mean, really detailed studies. That thing's a snake with fins.
Okay.
It's nowhere near as delicate as we want to think it is, but I don't want to say that where anybody can hear it. But
well, that's another thing too, right? So that I want to be careful with, because I've seen people start to take better care of their fish.
Sure.
Right. So the last thing I want to do is get on here and say, "Hey, they're hardy. You don't have to do that anymore." Right.
No,
that's not what we're saying.
Right.
No. As a matter of fact, I think that your point about fishermen working with each other, I hate to put this back on the boater, but he knows his live wells.
Yeah.
I've got good friends in this business, and they've done things to enhance their live well. We have a method for a standard live well on any boat. Everything from assemble yourself, aluminum boat, all the way through the best of the best.
Okay.
Nothing on it, just aerators, circulators, or anything else. And we've got a process, and we know how it works, and that's great. We can tell you that. But if you've got like an oxygenator or something like that, there's certain things that you can put in there that'll kill them. You can over-salt them.
Rejuvenate
will
will
kill them
them.
stone cold dead
So
when you have oxygenators.
That's right.
So like I said, I don't want to saddle the captain of the boat, but maybe a little more coaching there with especially the guys in the back of the boat.
Right.
And I've been that guy, man. I didn't know nothing. The guy said, "Get in the boat, shut up." I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I understand their perspective. There's a lot of the non-boaters that don't, but I do.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. You kind of got into fish care a little bit. You said that you hold your breath when they come from the live well in the bag until they get to the tank, right? Because that water's
Until they
aerated.
get back in my tote.
Okay, to your tote.
Yes.
So give us some other tips about, you talked about ice, right?
Well, it's not that simple, because it depends. I mean, typically with the Bassmasters Classic, I don't think what many people take into consideration, with the exception of the Oklahoma Classic a few years ago, and I think maybe the Hartwell the year before when the boats froze to the trailer the first day.
Well, when the water's cold, it's not that big of a deal, right?
No, you don't need ice, but it's warm in some of these places. I mean, we run around Birmingham in shorts
Right.
now, so you don't need ice.
When you guys go to Gunnersville, it's going to be hot.
It ain't gonna be warm. It's gonna be hot. Yeah.
So you need to know where those temperature barriers are. Gene has worked hard to impress upon me, and has trusted me extensively in some very crucial situations in some elite tournaments about knowing what those temperature things are. 74 to 77 is ideal.
And that's one thing you see him do constantly. People don't see what goes on behind the stage when Mercer's up there talking to you and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gene is back there. I think we have 7 or 8 tanks behind the stage.
Mm-hmm.
He goes from tank to tank to tank, checking the water temperature.
Correct.
If it gets too hot, he fills it full of ice. And when he's done with this one, he starts over again.
Correct.
And goes back. It goes to every single one of them. I mean, it's things like that don't get seen, and they also don't get talked about.
Well, and the oxygen stones that are in there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's things like that are actually going on with those thermometers. I can see with some of the other tournaments that are, club tournaments, things like that. Oh God, I've seen some crazy things with that. But the bottom line is I think, and this is going to go for every single subject that we talk about tonight.
Okay.
Okay. There is what we are actually studying and learning and doing, and I said learning, I mean, even now, this year, we learned about those fish that are not delayed mortality. We were surprised. I mean, we really were. We were thinking, okay, we're going to have to make a stat out of this.
I think that's surprising for all three of us as well.
But the thing about it is there's way too much rainbows and unicorns you pick up out here on social media and the internet and everything else. And these guys, man, they get it fixed in their head. Well, I so and so, and they said,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's stats, and I think it's fair. We've had tournaments. I've worked some very big tournaments where we lost fish.
Sure.
And it's
I've
just
been in
one
some
of
big
those,
tournaments where we lost
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah, I mean, we thought we knew what we were doing, like with the release boats and stuff like that, and then somebody makes a boo-boo, and the next thing you know, instead of us releasing them in a planned situation where we think the water temperature is 10 degrees colder than it was 10 degrees hotter.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of fish.
Well, so that's something that, when I'm talking about my reef tank again. So I wrote down 74 to 77. So I keep it stable at 75. That's what coral likes, right?
Right.
So so if I cool my live well down to 77 degrees, okay, and I catch a fish out of 92 degree water, that's surface temp, and I drop him in there, that's not good.
That's not good. In my business, in the water quality business, you can look this up in North Carolina State Water Quality Standards. It's basically about a 5 degree differential is considered toxic.
Okay.
Okay. That being said, probably one of the most challenging tournaments that I marshaled and worked was the one at the Potomac a couple of years ago when it was 120 degrees, and it was crazy. And we fought the whole tournament to make sure we had ice. We ran out.
Okay.
And we kept it going, but even then, you're not going to get that water temperature down to 77 degrees.
Right.
If you cool it off any at all, I gotta hate to geek people out, but the bottom line is that water, oxygen dissolving in water, the colder it is, the more oxygen dissolves. It's
Right.
the reverse of any kind of salt.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're in 90-something degree water, if you can get it down a few degrees, you're going to get an exponential increase in oxygen in that water. That's your goal.
Okay.
You certainly, you're going to lose more fish through suffocation. You will lose them from temperature shock.
Yep.
But the oxygen is the key thing. Even if they're a shocked fish, even if they've been bounced across 7-foot waves on the Potomac trying to get it back into quiet water, you're going to have a better chance of releasing that fish alive if you've got more oxygen.
Okay.
You get picked up by an ambulance for something where they don't know what's wrong with you. They
First
don't
thing
check
they
your
do is
temperature first.
Right. They send oxygen on you. So, well, that being said, so if it's 92 out here, so that would put us at 87 degrees would be toxic shock if we drop it that fast.
Current water temperature out here is 86 degrees.
Well, that's
so,
good.
So if
That's
we
been just a couple cool nights.
well,
And the
but
mud
again,
coming too.
Yeah.
again, the water temperature, the last cool front cooled the lake down a lot from 93 down to 87. But if you take in, this is news to me because what I'll do is I'll stop over here before a tournament, grab 2 bags of ice, throw them in my live wells, get out there, go catch fish. Well, you think about it. If I got 2 bags of ice on one side of the live well, there's a big temperature change when I start throwing fish in the live well.
Right.
So, is it better to have ice during the tournament? Or is it better to have the ice in a boat and slowly, once you catch the fish, kind of gradually cool the
Well, you
water
don't want to
down?
get it too. Well, so Frazier hit on something else. It's the release, right? So if you get it down to this and you dump them back in 90 degree water, you basically did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's barotrauma both ways.
Yeah.
To tell you, I mean, I don't have anything special on my live wells. I'm riding a Ranger boat. Basically, the way that I do it is I've got one of two things. If I don't have a way to keep my ice packs cold, my blue ice,
Mhm.
then I use bags of ice. But what I do is I watch the water temperature as the day goes on. If it eases above 90 degrees, I start adding ice in the live well.
Okay.
That's not always the best answer. It could be water. I mean, you know this from having a saltwater aquarium. If there's anything that even looks like chlorine, everybody's going to be going belly up.
That's right.
So if that ice has been made somewhere where they've got,
And you got to get rid of ammonia, which is what fish secrete when they're stressed, right?
I keep my live well running all day long.
Yeah.
From about noon on these crazy hot summer days, I turn it on, I leave it on. and I keep that water circulating. I do not keep the plug in the bottom of it. I think it's auto where it just fills up and spills out the top.
Yep.
I keep that out until I'm running the boat.
Okay.
Okay, so that way I'm not only draining across the top, I'm draining out the bottom too. I'm moving more water.
Well, you
Keep
have to be
fresh water
careful
in
when you
there.
make a long run with that, right? Because you'll suck all the water out of it. I've
Yes,
seen
you
that
will.
before.
Yeah, and you'll kill fish.
Let me ask your opinion on this. You answered what I was fixing to ask about the ice having ammonia and chlorine and all that in it. This year, I put the V12 vents in the top of my live well lids, and in my opinion, I can honestly say that I think it makes a huge difference in the water quality that's in your live well lids, and this is why. How many times have you dumped Rejuvenate, G-Juice, whatever, Keep
Hooch.
Alive,
Hooch, whatever hooch.
whatever your choice of
Peroxide.
of stuff is, peroxide. I use peroxide.
I had to say it.
You know, whatever it is, when you put it in there and you shut the air off to those live well lids, when you open them up, what's on top of the water?
All the gas.
Huge bubbles,
Yeah.
foam, all kinds of gases. Well, that gas can't expel when those things are closed. By putting those vents in there, when you run down the lake, that vent sucks air down into the live well and pushes it back out the other side. Is that not
That's
the way
correct.
it works? Okay.
It's not that simple, but yes, that's
But
the theory.
essentially that's
Yeah.
what the
You're
end
also
result
getting
is.
carbon dioxide,
Right.
ammonia, and
Yes.
those things.
It vents all that stuff that's piled up on top of the water that's in your live wells. And this year, knock on wood, I have not lost a fish.
I'm a believer. I
So
because of the design of my boat, I can't put them in my boat because it was one of the years where they made thin lids, so I can't use them. But as long as I keep shoveling fish in and out, I don't worry about it.
so
I
these
got
guys give me crap all the time. You used the word geek earlier. I am a geek.
He's
He's
a
our
nerd. No,
cool.
he's a
our-
nerd.
He's our resident
There you
nerd.
He's a nerd. There's a difference
Oh,
between a
so-
nerd and a geek. But that's another
So
topic.
when you get in my boat,
Do you have a temperature sensor in your live well that tells you exactly what the live well water temperature is?
I do.
There you go.
So I run a Phoenix,
Mhm.
and Shane can tell you when you sit at the cockpit, it looks like a spaceship. You have to turn all the gauges off and everything in the morning because it'll blind you. But you know, so a NEMA network, NEMA 2000 network, every graph out there supports it, right? That's not anything specific to Lowrance or Garmin or Humminbird. Everybody runs that network,
Right.
okay? And your temperature sensors that are drilled in the back of your boat, that's what they are. They are a temperature sensor.
Mm-hmm.
So for about $25, you can get one for your live well. In my case, I have two because my live wells are separate, complete separate systems. And you can put those things in your live well and put the readout right on your graph. So you know what the water temperature is in your live well.
Awesome.
And it is very easy to know when things are going to go bad. And the vent plugs that you're talking about, so I don't have those yet, right? I as many things as I've mounted on my boat, I am scared to death to take a 2-inch hole saw to the top of my live well lids. But I did notice in our last tournament, which is on Lake Hartwell and the Palmetto Boat Trail, it was in August and it was hot. I mean, it was miserable hot. We came in early. We were just trying to get some points, and I knew we had no chance of winning. And I was watching that sensor, and it got hot in there. I mean, it got really hot. And I noticed just while we were running around, if I would just reach back there and prop my live well lid open just a hair and just let some air circulate in there, man, it was dropping the water temperature 2 or 3 degrees on, I mean, just like a 2-minute run.
Yep.
So just getting some kind of recirculation, what you're talking about.
Yep.
Well, I mean, think about it. That
Is a
that
big
open
deal.
airspace between that hot water and that deck that's got the sun beating on it is
That's right.
It's insulation. It's going to draw
right.
heat in. It's not going to make it better. It's going to make it worse.
That's right. Well, you answered my biggest question that I was going to ask, and it was specifically about fizzing, because you know you hear people say, "Oh, don't fizz them; it'll kill them," and then you've heard, you know, because that's what always our debate's been, right? Do you or do you not? And I've always taken the stance is, well, if you do, you got a chance for them to at least live, but if you turn them loose belly up, they're going to be
100% he's going to die.
osprey or turtle food or something within a day, because he ain't just going to magically right himself, right?
Yeah, and in all fairness too, I'm not an expert at it, but of course Barb is, and Barb's a very good friend of mine. We talk generally about weekly at worst. They're learning more about that too. It's not as simple as just getting the needle in there and squeezing all the air out and throwing it back in the water. It's about getting some of it out.
That's right,
but
not all of it.
That's
out.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I've done it before,
let it
and you
all
let them
out,
go,
but-
and they just sink to
Well,
the
that's
bottom.
what a lot of people don't understand is if you get it
Yeah.
all out, they sink like a rock because it takes all their balance away.
right.
You know,
So
And
the-
it's- yeah,
the best-
especially around here with the issues with thermocline, and I'm saying that word for my friend with North Carolina Wildlife Resources, Kurt Rundle, because I drive Kurt completely nuts with my thermocline fetish. Everything's about thermocline because of the way our lakes stratify. So that was done specifically for Kurt to geek.
Well,
with him.
that's
Right, so
actually a
explain-
very important thing to know in
Yeah,
these
so-
lakes and how to
Yeah.
catch a fish at different points in time.
So we know about the thermocline. So explain that to our viewers that might not know. So
The non-geekiest way that I can explain it is that basically most people assume that the oxygen gets in the water from its contact with air, and it does not.
okay,
The oxygen gets in the water the same way that we get our oxygen from trees and grass and everything else, turning carbon dioxide into oxygen. We breathe it. In the water, it's plants, but the plant that gets overlooked is algae. Algae can only grow as deep as the light will penetrate.
okay,
So, God, this is a secret that, boy, there's a bunch of people going to be mad at me for giving away. Hot summertime, hottest summertime there is right now. I fish algae blooms, period. I don't care what lake I'm on, especially if it's offshore lake, okay? But what happens is you'll start the morning, you look at the water, and it looks kind of like coffee or tea. And you put your lure in there, and you can see 2-3 foot down under normal circumstances, dry weather, something like that. As the day goes on, especially if you get over objects like road beds or points or something like that, all of a sudden it starts looking like it's got milk in it. Well, that's your algae bloom.
that's the way it looks out here all the time.
Yeah.
Green Wiley, right?
Well, and then what happens the later the day goes on is that, okay, those fish are bait's gonna aggregate to the algae, and then
Yep.
and we all know how that process is and everything else. But the one that most people miss in hot weather is if you don't have flow and that thermocline is still intact, as the algae gets thicker, it starts blocking the light, and
Okay.
the thermocline doesn't go down; it comes up.
How about that?
I mean, we've seen, especially
Stop talking.
I know. We've seen in some of the more quiescent lakes up there around me, like Randall. I got a buddy named Kyle Thomas that's he's such a stick. He's a young guy, he's a little Marine. Thank God for your service, brother. We love you. But I put him in the back of the boat and he said, "Man, I can't fish behind you. You're going to vacuum everything up." Whipped my behind for about 3 years because he started figuring this stuff out. And our big key is the afternoon would go on, we realized you'd have to come shallower in some of that timber down there. We're catching toes, 8-pound fish in
Oh,
August
Lord.
with 90-something degree water.
Sounds like it's time for another 1v1.
So that thermocline though is what determines how deep those fish are. Now, the geek side of it is that it's not a line.
Sure.
It's a transition.
Right.
All right, and what most guys see on their graph is there's 3 layers. Okay, they see that one on the bottom though. Oh, that's down at 22 feet. Where's my DD22?
No.
That acceptable oxygen range is probably upwards of 10 feet. And most of the time, in the hottest part of the summer, you won't find me fishing any deeper than 6 in a lake that doesn't have flow. If it's not generating power. And there's actually a website where we have automated probes out there where you can go and look at this data and know where you're at on any given day.
So is that a good rule of thumb? So you said 22 to 10 foot. Is it typically always half or?
It moves. It moves. You can go out here right now and
Somebody's not happy with me.
I'd
I've
say
seen
that-
that look in
He'll
there.
be all right.
you
We're
know
not-
it's
we're not
actually
worried about him.
it's very interesting information because someone else, Gene Webster, and I had a very in-depth conversation about this 2 weeks ago. He and I talked about it, and he's known for catching them on crankbait and so on and so forth. So he kind of broke down what was up, and it was a very similar situation. But the thermocline out here can go from You know, you could be at 30 foot, you could be at 20 foot. And at night, you can see it come up as high as even 15 foot.
Right.
If you know how to find it on your graph.
Right.
It's not hard.
And if you look, and if you're around fish, you can see those fish will be here. They'll never be here. At least that I've found.
And you're talking about below the thermocline.
Below.
But here's the big question about this whole thermocline stuff. Those fish that you're seeing around the thermocline, can you catch them?
Depends.
At times.
No, just what's cool your jets, Sir Einstein.
Just-
Can you catch the fish when they're not relating to anything? Like you were talking about, they're relating to that timber. These fish that are just relating to just the thermocline,
Yeah.
they don't have anything to get on in the timber. They're relating. They gotta be.
You know. I can't when they're out there on the open water like that, but I know guys that can.
There
Just
are.
catch them out of
But
out of
here's,
the thermocline.
here's the problem. There's
Video
a time.
game.
Right.
There's a time and a situation, and the fish will let you know it. You've got one of the most advanced graphs for doing it. Your Garmin Live Scope.
Mm-hmm.
If you spend some time out there playing with it, you can look at those fish and say, "Yeah, I can catch them," or "No, I can't."
Well,
But it's time spent doing it.
well, then I gotta know. So then, why in the heck, in these night tournaments, when you all take off at 6:30, the first place you go is 35 feet deep? Why is that?
Situational. I didn't this Friday
But
night.
I didn't say this Friday night.
I mean, there-
We've all been out there, rub rail to rub rail, whacking them in 32 foot of water till dark.
this lake has flow.
It ain't got that much flow.
It does. Believe it or not, it doesn't take much to keep that thermocline at bay.
Well, and
When
see,
Gene Webster was out here and did that and talked about how the thermocline was here and there and this, for about 2 weeks they didn't pull any water, and it showed up. Friday night they were running at 5,800 cubic feet per second, which for summertime flows ripping it out of here.
It's about 3,200, well, 1,800 to 3,200
Is about
is
average.
about average.
It is about average for this time of year. So the thermocline theory right now, throw it out the door. It's gone because they're moving enough water through this
I was
lake
gonna say,
right
I
now.
have a hard time finding a thermocline out here. Now, you take me to Lake Norman, I can find it immediately.
oh yeah.
But out here, I have a hard time finding it.
But the only time you're going to find it is legitimately in a period of time that they don't pull water for about a week, week and a half. And then you'll start seeing it pop up. And then it gets very visible in the evenings.
Well, he don't ever find it.
No,
There's not one that's 5 feet deep.
So I was going to say, the only thermocline he finds is the algae blooming that he can touch with his rod tip.
The only algae bloom I've ever fished has been up north when, when it looks like particles floating in the water. That's the only algae bloom I ever fished.
Well, there's something
We call
else
that
going on,
duckweed
too.
down here, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with my geek guy here too. There's something else going on. I had the opportunity to meet a guy that's a world expert on this with the Corps of Engineers. If right now, hot as it is out there, you go out there and you pour maple syrup on top of your hood, it's gonna flow off slow, right?
Yeah.
But the hotter it gets, it's gonna move faster.
That's right.
Okay, if you pour water right beside of it, the water's coming right off. Okay, the same thing's happening out there on that lake.
Maybe not Davis' truck. His is filthy.
Well, I mean, even if the water's dirty, it's going to move. Okay. You feel better now,
I
Dave?
think I was just a jab at David.
Wow.
you won't ever miss that. I mean, come on.
The temperature of the water causes it to flow differently, especially in extremely hot circumstances. And I picked up what he said that this guy was talking about, where there may actually have been a thermocline down at 30-something feet, but it's that colder water undermining it. You've seen the same thing happen in muddy water.
Yeah.
You get out there and you look down and, oh man, the water's clear. And then all of a sudden you take off in your boat and it looks like tomato soup. What happened? Now, underflow, overflow. It's the same thing. Dirt versus clear versus hot versus cold. You'll do the same thing. So it's tricky, and these guys go out there and I'm one of them. I mean, I've been doing this for going on 40 years now and I'm just now figuring it out. But if you don't mind a shameless plug on YouTube, if you search CMAP Genesis and Frazier, there's about a 30-minute video that I did at all of the Bass Expos several years ago that talks about what those images look like on a simple, just no frills, no live scope, no nothing.
Just 2D.
2D sonar.
2D. What those fish will look like when they're passive, when they're possibly aggressive, and when they're definitely feeding.
Okay.
And I got that from being around the elite guys and talking to them, and I did that specifically for beginners. This is not an advanced video, but it talks about thermoclines and how to use your mapping and everything else to do it. It's about 30 minutes long. We've gotten good feedback on it.
So CMAP Genesis Frazier
Yeah.
is what we need to
On
Google.
YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, you won't have any trouble finding it.
All right.
And
Well,
I
I'm sure we'll
love
go
to
watch
talk
it.
fishing. So.
Yeah. Well, we do too. Believe it or not, we've already been doing this for 40 minutes. Can you believe
That's
that?
right.
Yeah, don't
And
take
nobody
long.
said a thing about them spotted bass.
We ain't
Well,
got there.
where-
We fixing to.
It's
Don't-
because
don't
everybody.
worry.
It's because
Stay tuned.
it's because everybody's listening right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now. it's
Everybody's
been- it's
taking
been very-
notes, and
It's
I
been
mean-
very informative.
No, I mean, you know, it's kind of funny to me when I started bass fishing. I came from fishing the ocean. When I started, there were not a whole lot of guys fishing deep. There was that select group that everybody wanted to be like, but nobody knew how to do it. Okay, and graphs were evolving. You know, Humminbird had come out with their side scan, Lowrance had come out with their side scan, and it was making it easier. Mapping still wasn't to where it is today. And then all of a sudden, mapping gets better. Now every Tom, Dick, and Harry's out there trying to plunder deep fish.
Oh yeah, there's no secrets anymore.
And then, you know, really and truly, it's caused me in the last 2 years to pick up a jig and some top water, just go fish the bank, because I'm not going out there rubbing rails with those knuckleheads.
Oh yeah.
See, that's what I've said my whole life.
So that's why we catch big ones at 1 o'clock. We suck all day until like 3:30.
I guess.
We don't catch them on top of water in the morning. We'll just put it up until
It'll be all right.
lunchtime.
You can ask my friends, because I preach this constantly. One, I'm getting a little older. I'm a lot older now. Okay, I'm not a morning person. I will do it if I've got to, but I don't like it. And over my lifetime, when I first started fishing, man, I was renting boats and assembling it with a 3 horsepower motor and a clamp on.
Sure.
Whatever
Any
it
way
took
you
to
can get
me
out
on the
there.
water.
That's right.
And that's just in the tournament side of it. I won my first tournament out of a rented boat with a Coca-Cola live well cooler, that I had rigged up. So, it is what it is. But my goal in bass fishing, and the guys I fish with now, they especially a new guy, when they get in boats, the first thing I tell them, I'm not out here to get 5 bites. I want 1 bite. I want the biggest fish in the lake, and I want it to be a state record. And every single time I get in the boat, that's what I do. And I've spent all of my fishing career trying to focus on that. I can tell you the total number of fish, probably on the digits, between fingers and toes, that I've caught over 8 pounds that weren't between 10 and 3 in the afternoon. I catch them in the middle of the day. And I mean, I've got my biggest bag ever was 41
Good Lord.
41.3.
Where was that at?
A
Harris.
little lake in High Point.
Really?
Got them on a buzz bait.
Good day. 40 pounds on a buzzbait? Sign me up for that trip.
I'm feeling kind of sick. I might have to call in sick tomorrow.
And you know what? There's people out there that are listening to this that are going to rag me to death about it because they call it my duck bite. At one time, there was a standing flock of almost 3,000 geese on Ocala Lake. It's a 700-acre lake, and it's one of the ones I manage. And basically what would happen in the springtime is those big sows would know where those geese nests were, and all you had to do, I mean, I've seen 8-pound fish behind a stick as big as that straw going, you can't see me.
Yep.
Hit the bank.
They don't have
chop,
mirrors,
chop,
right?
chop, chop, boom. And I mean, that's how it happened.
I'm gonna tell you something that
picture
sounds
some.
crazy. Back when I first started fishing, which was in the late '80s, early '90s, this lake right here, every single dock out here used to have gourds on them. For a lot of people watching right now, they don't have no idea what a gourd is. But I'll just give you a little overview. It's where people used to take big, look like a clothesline, and hang gourds off of them, and they drilled holes in them for purple martins. Well, the purple martins nest in those things every year, April, May, when those things hatch out. I kid you not. Them babies would fall out of them gourds into the lake. I know this sounds crazy, and you can rag me about it if you want to. But I've seen purple martins fall out into the water, and bass come up and eat them, and you throw a poplar over there right behind them and catch a 6-pounder. I've done it.
Aaron Martin's won an Elite Series tournament out
He
west
sure did.
somewhere.
Havasu.
Havasu. Yeah,
That was
he
on
way up
on the Red Starling.
Yeah, he was
hatch.
way up in the
Same type deal. I know it sounds crazy, And if you hadn't brought that up, I would have never told that. But that's the truth.
Well, I appreciate you bailing me out because people do give me a bad time about it. But
Whatever they call those, the toolies or whatever.
Yeah,
and
breeds.
I will never forget him opening his live well to coal, and the camera shined down in there, and there were bird feathers floating in his, because he was talking about it, right? And he's like, I want to show you this because no one's going to believe me, and there were literally feathers floating in his live well where a fish had spit them up.
Yeah.
Why not? It's isolated, and that's the biggest bag ever. But I mean, I get probably a half a dozen 30+ pound bags a year doing something similar to that. I will be honest with you, I have fallen in love with the frogs since I made friends with Gene Ross, and that's a little easier.
Yeah.
If you can keep them hooked. But
Yeah.
He's got set the hook really, really hard.
65-pound test, medium, heavy, fast tips, and I
Whack 'em.
I just like setting it really hard.
All right, boys and girls, enough reminiscing.
All right.
Let's get to the real deal.
The meat and
the
potatoes.
Spotted bass in Lake
Spotted
Norman.
bass.
But it's not just Lake Norman. It's the entire Catawba chain at this point in time.
yes.
Because
All right, so-
it's filtering down the hills.
Down and up.
And
So,
up.
before we get there, where the heck did the spotted bass come from? Because when I was a kid, I didn't know anything about a spotted
I
bass.
remember the very first one I ever seen. Back in 1998, I was in South Fork Bassmasters, and we used to put on a tournament every year in the fall to raise money. We had a club trip every year where the club would go. We'd go somewhere for a weekend. The club paid for everything. Well, that's how we paid for it. We had a tournament, raise money to do that, and this was at Lake Norman. It was at Midway, and I can tell you who brought it to the scale. Scott Beatty brought his bag up there, and I was the guy that bumped the fish. So I put all the fish in the tank, and I'm looking at them, and I looked at that one. I said, man, is that a spotted bass? And I'd just gotten back from Kiowee fishing the red man.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, is that a spotted bass? And I get to looking at it, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and people walking up looking at it like, what is that? And I turned to Beatty. I said, man, he said, I caught it. That's all I know. And you know, I mean, and that was the first one I ever seen at Lake Norman, 1998. Where they came from, everybody has their own suspicions or rumors, you know, whatever.
I'm not talking about just Lake Norman. I'm talking about, were these things like bred in a lab somewhere, or where the heck did they come from?
That would be a question for him.
Okay. I'm going to try to answer it in terms of the information that I can give you without speaking for people that know more about it than I do.
Okay.
The first time that I saw spotted bass was when I was working back in pre-TBF split with the people at North Carolina Wildlife Resources, and they had actually tried to stock Kentucky spotted bass in Norman because it was always such a weak fishery. It had kind of a limited takeoff on it. Basically, the Kentucky type spots in waters with largemouth will crossbreed, and eventually the gene kind of goes away. If it's a dominant largemouth waters upstream, I don't know which lake specifically. I have heard that some of the Kentucky's made it for a long time. Now let's answer your question. The one that everybody's upset about is a Alabama Coosa spotted bass.
That's right.
Okay, they are native to the Mobile River system in central Alabama. They are a totally different species. So a spot is not a spot is not a spot.
Okay.
There's just different species in the Kentucky.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Alabama bass is the same thing as a Coosa
Yes.
spotted bass.
Same
Okay.
thing. Okay.
Yes. Now, Gene's probably out there listening someplace, and he's like, "Frazier, don't forget the other 7 species of spotted bass." We're talking.
We're
about
not here for that.
we're gonna talk about the issue that everybody wants to talk about. The Alabama bass are incredibly aggressive. It is something that if you talk to fisheries biologists across the southeast, they will tell you that it's their worst nightmare. It is a very aggressive fish. It is a very uncontrolled breeder if it is not in its native waters. They get out of hand quick. Everywhere where I have ever worked tournaments that are long-term dominated by Alabama bass, you end up with very stunted fish. And it's just that simple. On the front end, yeah, you're going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe some, some larger fish out there, and they're a pulling animal.
Yep.
They do.
They're mean and they
Yeah.
fight.
So I understand the assumption that everybody says, well, we want them. Without naming names, I would challenge you to find any other fisheries biologist across the southeast that hadn't just thrown his hands up, where they've dominated the fisheries and they've just taken over. Do largemouth live in those fisheries? Yes. But, I mean, the data so far, and nobody will contradict this. Nobody. Anywhere. Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee is kind of on the upswing right now. The people that have had them long term wish they'd never had them, and they've just kind of given up.
Gotcha.
So, with that being said, I'm going to ask a question. Shane, just hold your fire for a minute, because I'm going to light Shane up with this one.
Okay.
So, there's been a statement, a theory made of kill all the spotted bass.
You will never do it.
Exactly. Okay. So, with that being said, it's not going to happen. They're here to stay. You're not going to get rid of them. The only way you can get rid of them is drain the lake, pull them out, fill the lake back up, start over. And even then, you'll probably still have them.
Yeah, won't work.
But with that being said, so managing a fishery with spotted bass,
Mhm.
are you here to say with some authority, a little bit of authority, that killing some spots is not a bad thing to help manage the size of them? So take, for instance, if you take and you kill the 14, 15-inch spotted bass, take them home, eat them, feed them to dogs, cats, whatever. To help manage the fishery, is that a plausible solution, or is that a...
Nobody else has found it to be so. But I want to answer your question with less than a short answer.
Okay.
Okay. The first thing is you're asking the guy that spent the last 12 years inside of a
Trying to save fish, I
trying to
understand.
save fish how to kill them. We don't want to kill them. We want managed harvest. If you ask the guys in North Carolina what the biggest challenge they have to their bass fisheries is, it's under harvest.
It's everywhere that has power plant. I mean, we've been pumped into our heads, EPA. All these people say, oh, you live on a nuclear lake. Oh, mercury's too high. Don't eat the fish. There's a sign at the boat ramp right now I can take you to.
Yeah.
And it
I
says,
know that.
6 ounces a week.
yeah. And so,
You really don't want to get me into that because I remember I'm that guy that does that. I run a toxicity laboratory and I can walk you through that theoretical calculation. If you back that thing out mathematically, it can't be measured.
that's exactly right. It's just like kingfish in the ocean. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not the best tasting fish, but you can take and make mackerel salad and they're amazing. And
Yeah.
people say, oh, don't eat them. They got mercury in them. Let me tell you something. I'm good and I grew up eating them.
Well, I mean, I hadn't started drooling out of the corner of my mouth yet, but
Not over no
anything's
kingfish.
possible. Asking somebody to kill the fish, no. But the North Carolina people will tell you outright, we need to harvest more fish. Then the next argument that's going to get thrown in there is well, okay, what's going on at High Rock down there where you can't even catch brim? Well, it's pressure. Well, you're killing the fish. No. The fish, if you beat on them long enough, are going to reposition.
Same thing you're fighting out here.
Yes.
To a point.
But again, you guys are accomplished fishermen. You're not these young guys that, oh man, I saw this on FLW. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be a bass fisherman.
What are you talking about? I saw it and heard it on Rusty Hook's Live.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to fight harder around the pressure. Which, again, I'm gonna do one of those shameless plugs. I would rather fish one of the city lakes any day of the week, especially if I'm those guys, because I know I've got a shot at a good fish that hasn't been beat up by tournaments and everything, and
Sure.
boat traffic and everything else. So if you want to learn, go learn there. Learn what the fish is about, learn its character, learn how to catch them. Back to Alabama bass. The problem, and you saw me shaking my hand before you even finished your sentence. I've never seen a situation where you could harvest enough to hurt the population. They're that
No, I mean, I've seen it out here, and granted, I've been doing this for about 12 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, when I first started fishing, there were very few that you ever saw, and most of them came from up the river. Well, I don't know what was about 4, 5, 6 years ago. There was a group of spotted bass down on the lower end of the lake, and they moved between 2 or 3 places, and you literally could catch 15 pounds out of it in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
You'd catch them here, you'd catch them there, you catch them there. They're going to be in one of those 3 places, and it was good for about 15 pounds every time. Didn't matter. But those fish disappear come summertime. They're next to impossible to find. Haven't mastered that yet. But fast forward to now, that group of fish has grown exponentially.
Yes.
And they're more prevalent down the lake, and they're on more than
They're
just the
everywhere.
3 places.
Yeah,
They're,
well-
it's becoming an everywhere
Well, as
thing.
the weights declined, more spotted bass are being brought to the middle of our lake. And when they let go, I mean, I know there's been studies that have shown they'll go back to where they were caught from. I've seen that stuff, but there's just too many of them.
No,
I mean, they're not all going to do that, right? So,
Being the saltwater guy, it's easier to look at an Alabama bass like a bluefish.
that's
They're raiding parties, and they go wherever the food is, and they
So-
eat everything.
so how come they survive so well in our lakes around here in a spawn, but our largemouth don't? Because they have to. I mean, they're living in the same places, right? I mean, we have no shoreline cover in these lakes.
spots spawn a lot deeper than largemouth do.
I understand that, but they still come out that big, just like all the other ones, and they get eaten as fry as anybody else does. So when you say they're such successful spawners, are you talking about the
It's-
actual physical spawning,
He
or
used the word exponential. They just, you can't imagine the rate
It's
they reproduce.
it's like
Okay.
this. If you have a largemouth that goes makes a bed over there and lays out 6 million eggs, okay, that's one largemouth that does that. If you got 30 spotted bass that go into that pocket, don't go shallower than 5 foot and lay 6 million eggs apiece, guess what? There's 3 times more, 10 times more than that one largemouth over there.
Well, I
So that's how
understand
that it grows.
How many times have you seen a largemouth sitting on a shallow bed, and what it's doing is fending off a ring of bluegill?
every year
Okay, these guys aren't fighting the bluegill.
so they spawn deeper?
Yeah.
Okay,
They may fight some, but it's not like that.
that makes
It has
sense.
to
I mean,
do with
I've been down in
habitat.
Ramsey on Lake Norman, and you can see him sitting on the bed in 20
Oh,
foot of
yeah.
water
Yeah, but I
because
will.
it's so clear down there.
Just like the smallmouth of Lake James, they do the same.
Listen, the biggest predator that the spotted bass has is the white perch. At the end of the day, when it comes to the fry, that's the only thing that they have to worry about. But the white perch would rather eat largemouth eggs
Well,
than
they
they
eat
would.
eggs for
They
sure.
would rather eat largemouth eggs than they would
That's a
spotted
whole
bass
nother
fry.
discussion.
But
That's-
White
even
perch.
even with the spots, I mean, from what I understand, just in cursory conversations, because there's still a lot of work that's being formally done, they're pushing back on the perch. These things are little piranhas, man.
They're terrible. I mean, listen, that was the dumbest.
I would much rather catch spotted bass and white perch.
That was the dumbest move that was never made by South Carolina DNR that they won't ever own it up to, putting them in here to replace the white bass because they spawn faster and they're easier to catch. The problem is they only get this big
I've
and
never heard anything about one wildlife agency stocking them.
well,
And I'm not contradicting you, but I mean, like I said, sitting in these fisheries meetings, these guys scream bloody murder, looking for anything. And in all fairness, from North Carolina and their plan to take the limit off of the Alabama bass, this was a very painful process.
anything dealing with fisheries has been made painful through the legislative
So-
system.
Well, but we knew, and really what the pushback was with the enforcement guys. They said people are not going to differentiate between spots and largemouth.
And there's some truth to that.
And that, so
Absolutely.
we understood that, But the thing about it is doing nothing with the Alabamas basically means that there are waters in North Carolina that you can just write off. Norman being one of them. Once they saturate. Now, and then the next thing somebody says is I do not want to mention any lake names unless they're North Carolina lakes, but
Okay.
I've had guys say, well, blah blah tournament at this lake was won with largemouth. If you know how to pattern largemouth in an Alabama lake,
That's
they're
right.
very specific. But you're not going to end up. I've worked those weigh-ins, and when you've got 5 fish limits that weigh a little over 4 pounds,
Yeah.
I mean, this
if you
is
want
not
us
going
to
to draw
pause this
crowds,
and you tell us how to pattern those?
I don't know, but there are people that do.
Okay.
You know, and
I mean, we
from-
hide behind technical difficulties on this show all the time.
All right, viewers, we are not going to pause it. Don't worry. I'm going to watch the numbers start dropping out because of that. No.
No, I don't even know, but I do know this. The wildlife people across the Southeast have, and when Corey was here a few weeks ago talking with Fox and some of those guys, he said if you're going to put these Floridas in the lake, you're not going to be able to just drop them off the end of the dock. You're going to have to target certain areas.
Right.
So they
So
know.
get eaten.
But again, okay, and it's like I said the last time we discussed it. You know, some of those guys watch this, and if I offend them, sorry. Truth hurts sometimes. If you take and you spend all this money that you've raised to buy these F1s, and you put them into the lake, okay, and you take the time and put them in the specific areas where the wildlife says, okay, put them here, best chance of survival. Okay, the hybrids, the spots, and everything else that's in Norman, what are the odds, realistic odds of a fingerling making it anywhere in Norman?
Well, I'm not a fisheries biologist, but number one, I don't recommend F1s. I recommend pure Floridas, as do most of the people now that know anything about it, just simply because you preserve the gene pool better. Number two, not doing anything is not the answer.
No. I
You know?
100%.
So when you say the gene pool, so all right. So remind me, an F1 is a Florida strain and a northern strain largemouth crossed.
Correct.
Right. So you get the size of a Florida strain bass, and the aggressiveness of a northern strain, and less susceptible to environmental changes,
The
shutting them
temperament.
down.
hot,
Right.
cold,
Temperament.
yeah.
Well, I don't know about that because from the lakes that I've been on where Floridas were stocked, like Randleman,
Mhm.
and they did get a good foothold because when that lake was flooded, it was just a few farm ponds and a few bass and a fast running creek.
Right.
When they stocked Floridas in there, they got a foothold. And the one thing I can tell you about them, and I'm not the best tournament fisherman in the world at all, is them things don't like cold fronts.
Yeah. We know that from going to Florida.
Go home.
So, well, back to
So-
my question though. The reason that you don't recommend F1s is because they're already crossed,
Yes,
right? So the minute they spawn with a spot,
which they
Or-
won't.
they will not.
They won't spawn with spotted bass.
Not in Alabama.
Okay. So the minute they
Kentucky, yes, but not in Alabama. The data shows that there was one marginal gene sequence that said it might be Alabama, but all the rest of them said they did not.
so F1s will not spawn with spots. I didn't.
I didn't know that.
Largemouth will not spawn with the Coosa bass according to the best data we have now. We may find out more later.
So
but
how do we have all these hybrid crosses in the lake then? Why when we catch a spotted bass?
Because they tried to stock Kentucky spots in Lake Norman a while back, and that's, again, take the 6-pound spotted bass that Eric Weir caught, state record. That was before they started doing DNA testing.
So when we
Kentucky
catch
and largemouth will spawn.
so when we catch
Kentucky
okay,
and
so
Coosas will spawn.
that's new to me. I did not know that. So when we catch a hybrid bass, which you can tell when you
Oh,
catch
yeah.
one, it's very easy to see.
Mhm.
That's not an Alabama bass and a largemouth. That's a Kentucky and a largemouth.
I can't tell you that without the DNA proof, and being the science guy, I'm not going to tell you that, but it is likely, yes. According to the best data that we have right now, largemouth and Coosas do not cross,
How about that?
which
I
is
did not
another
know
one of the
that.
I
problems.
didn't either. I know they crossed with something, because I've caught a whole bunch of them. And the one thing that I do know is now this has been several years back. We were having a tournament at Norman. This guy comes up the hill. The tournament was over. This guy comes up the hill and says, "Hey, does anybody have a set of scales?" Sure, we all had a set of scales. This guy proceeds to carry this fish up there in a bag that was, when I looked at it, I said, "My God, that's a new state record spotted bass." And they weighed it on the scales and it weighed 7.5 pounds. So I called Eric Winter at Bass Pro Shop and said, "Hey, you need to check this out." Well, they wound up taking the fish to Bass Pro Shop. Somebody, I don't know who it was, somebody went and DNA tested the fish.
Mhm.
And it tested as 60% largemouth, 40% spotted bass. Whether it's Coosa or Kentucky or whatever, I don't know that.
Right.
But I do know that something in there is crossing with something.
Right, and in all fairness, let me explain the next level of that. Because whenever we first went out several years ago and started this project, the Alabama bass weren't there in any particular level. Now we're having to deal with it. But
Mhm.
what happened is North Carolina Wildlife Resources set out to do a DNA study of bass throughout because they were afraid that people were going to start transplanting these creatures.
Right.
As of this past year, what we found out is we didn't look deep enough. DNA strands are kind of like tinker toys. We looked for bass. We found either bass or spots, largemouth or spots. Okay, but what we didn't differentiate in was largemouth, northern largemouth, Florida. And they said, hey, somebody said, hey, that gene looks like a Florida gene. And they said, well, let's go back and do some more testing. And they did. And that's when they found out that Floridas are native to North Carolina.
I had no idea. I didn't know that.
They didn't know that. They thought it was somebody transplanting fish. But basically what it boils down to is if there are alligators in the rivers, you got Floridas. It's that simple. And west to east, closer to the coast you get,
Yeah.
the more Florida. But there's mixed genes out there with the largemouth and the Floridas already, which goes back to kind of supplement your question. If you've got a potential for a Florida and a North Carolina water anyway, then why not give it a whirl? You know, I mean, you're going to get a better quality fish, and then maybe down the road we may learn, well, you know, maybe there is a certain percentage of these things that are spawning with the spots, and
Sure.
you're getting this. We don't know, but I mean, we also know that there's lots of weird stuff going on with waters in North Carolina. We're catching smallmouth frequently around the Yadkin River Bridge in High Rock now.
Yeah. There were 5 or 6 of them wading out here.
Well, there
Yeah.
you go. I
Just
mean,
Well, and
year.
again, that comes down to flooding. I mean,
Right.
X amount. There's a lot of
So-
nature.
Coosas and smallmouth will spawn together.
Yeah.
That's where you end
Yeah,
up with
the
these
mean mouth.
weird
Mean
hybrids.
mouth. We
Yeah.
caught a lot of them
Yeah,
at
I read,
Lake James
I
this
read
year.
something about Lake James, and they're worried about the smallmouth habitat
Yeah.
up there.
You
Smallmouth
know,
Yeah,
they
you
will completely
gone.
wipe the smallmouth
Yeah.
population out.
Yeah.
They will
That may have been an
out-gene.
article you shared, actually.
You know, you were talking about the stuff in the river. I grew up on the South Fork River, up around in Lincoln County. So I grew up my whole life walking the banks, you know, all that stuff. And we used to catch a lot of smallmouth out of South Fork River. Now, granted, they ran really small. I mean, you know, like 11 to 12 inches. But you could catch a lot of them as a kid. You know, when you walk on the bank throwing a rooster tail, you just want something to bite.
Right.
And we used to catch a lot of them. And you know, I'm sure eventually there's a few dams that they have to come across over there. But when it floods and things like that, sure, they get washed down into wild. They have to.
Yep. I understand. The best answer I can give you about the Alabamas, no matter which platform you're on to ask your question, is right now, we do know that they'll run a fishery in the southeast. What they will do in our fisheries, we don't know. But the prognosis is not good. And that's just what the fishery guys across the southeast.
Okay, so if we don't know this, why did we implement no limit, no size limit, none of that stuff for the spotted bass?
We will know that we do know that they'll overpopulate.
I understand that, but why do we want to wipe them out? I don't understand that.
You're not going to wipe them out. Anybody that has told you that there's an effort to wipe them out is
I mean, you know, I watched that meeting thing that they had with Corey, and now all of a sudden everybody's on this bandwagon. We're going to have kill tournaments. We're going to see how many we can catch and kill. I mean, you know, dude, that is you want to get me fired up. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've seen
and
that.
because I've been on the backs, I was on the other side of this whole deal when Lake Norman, back when I first started fishing.
Mhm.
If you had 8 or 9 pounds of Lake Norman, you had a shot of winning.
Right.
If you had 11, you had a dead nuts lock at it.
Right.
And I don't want to see that again. I mean, there's been times now, especially in the wintertime. I mean, I've come in with 20 pounds before and lost. And those 5 that I weighed 20 pounds were all spots.
Understand?
And I don't want to see that go away. And if these guys think that they're going to kill all the spotted bass and replace it with F1s or Floridas or whatever, it's not going to happen. And I'm no fisheries biologist or anything like that, but I just don't want to see our lake go from, I mean, it's not the greatest fishery in the world, but it's 100 times better than it was in the year 2000.
It's
20 years ago, it's way better right now.
It's
Is
way
it
better
going to
than
go
it is down
down?
here.
Is it going to go down? Very possibly. I'm not arguing that because I've seen ponds and things before that are overpopulated with fish, and it's full of them that are 1.5 pounds. Could that happen to Lake Norman?
It comes down to biomass at that point.
Yeah.
That's what I
Until you
was
do
gonna
a
ask.
complete
I
study on the
agree.
biomass of the lake, you won't know. And then it's tag it to the fisheries department, because there's not that I'm aware of. There's not a company that does those studies outside of. Well, I mean, there are people that do them, but how much is it going to cost to do a biomass study of Lake Norman? Will the state pay for that kind of information?
Duke has their own people.
Yeah, well, you're also bringing another
So
enemy
Frazier,
to the table at that point.
Let me ask you this. So David brought up biomass, and I've talked to some fishery biologists in the parking lot out there before, and they've talked about that, right?
Mhm.
And we'll go back to, I hate to keep bringing up my reef tank, but I do know that I have a 90-gallon tank, and there's only a certain amount of life that my tank can support.
That's correct.
Okay, so is that the idea behind removing the size limit on the spot to take some of that biomass out of the bank runners, right?
Yes.
To allow the larger ones to grow, or what?
It's just reducing biomass. You were right in its simplest form, but I'm going to say it again. It's not just about the spots. It's about everything.
No,
That's going to happen.
catfish.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
across
I mean,
the board.
And see, that's been my biggest complaint is this right here. If you want to, let's not say eliminate, but if you want to shrink the biomass in Lake Norman, it does you absolutely zero good to take out 50,000 spotted bass
And
and
nothing else.
then turn them right around in the next fall, dump 250,000 hybrids in there. What have you accomplished? Nothing. Nothing.
Because he's biting his tongue.
Yeah, because he's biting his tongue. That's my thing about it. We've got to get the Wildlife Fisheries Commission or whatever to realize. I mean, I understand the reason for having the hybrids in there. Do I like them? No, I freaking hate them.
Okay,
They're-
tell me
Tell you what,
why they're in there.
because you have a group of fishermen around the lake that fish December, January, February when it's cold, when the hybrids are at their height of biting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This group of fishermen has a lot of money. Therefore, they have a lot of pull on what gets put in the lake. Remember me telling you back about we had this little group called the NFA when we were before? A lot of these guys were a member of that group. I know them personally. I know how the hybrids got in there.
Mhm.
They paid for them.
I understand.
They were in on a study that said, okay, the lake can sustain this. Okay, when it was put in, yes, the lake could sustain that. But here's the deal. Back when the hybrids had been in there about 5 years and they had grown from fingerlings to 18 inches, well, now you could go out there any day you want to in October, November. They're schooling all over the place.
Yeah.
Was it fun? I was right in the middle of them, son. I was
Oh, yeah.
having me a ball. But here's another thing.
Ruined many a tournament.
They have what they do was they were feeding on the thread fins.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now the thread fin population of Lake Norman is
Nil.
it is. I'm not gonna say it's gone, but it is a lot less than it was 5 years ago because I probably spend as much, if not more, time on Lake Norman, especially in the wintertime, because that's when I'm home. I spend a lot of time out there than most people do because I love to fish in the winter. And when it gets, the colder it is, the better I like it. Because the fish will gang up on that bait. The thread fins now, they'll get in the back of those pockets and they huddle up. And they have obviously you know about a shad kill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those fish are sitting there just gorging on them. We hadn't had one of those in 3 years.
I understand.
It's been warmer, but they just don't. The mass of thread fins is not there like it was. And now everybody's talking about, oh, we can't catch the hybrids. We're 30 feet deep. Of course we're 30 feet deep. You know what else is 30 feet deep?
Alewives.
Alewives. So they have moved on from the thread fin population to now they're on the alewives.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep dumping them in there every year. The Wildlife Commission as a group. They have to commission it for it to
No,
happen.
they're dumping hybrids.
The hybrids.
Okay.
So we got a couple questions we need to get.
do.
Let me back up one thing before you get too far
Okay.
away, because there's a piece to this Florida spot puzzle that we haven't talked about, and I need to get it on the table so that you understand. You ever fish Seminole?
Yes, sir. I hate it.
Any spots in it?
I've never caught.
I've never caught one.
But the river above it is full of them.
Eufaula's above it, isn't it?
Well, I'm just talking about the Flint River and all that bunch of stuff.
They have shoal bass.
I understand, but it's also full of the Coosa spot.
I don't
Okay,
know.
the point is there are places where the Floridas will crowd them out and keep them in check.
What
We-
Seminole got that would do that?
A salad bar.
There you go. That was
Grass.
the next question. One of the next questions coming up
Okay.
is Jason Lamb wants to know
Hey, Jason.
what is in Lake Norman to support F1s as far as cover, bait, etc.
Not a lot right now. Most of that is traffic, but there's a gentleman named Mark Folks of North Carolina Wildlife Commission who I have worked with for years and years and years, and we have plans to put in vegetation. The other places where we put it in, even in Gaston, it's taken hold and it's changing the fishery. It's improving it.
So,
Grass is absolutely going to improve.
What kind of vegetation is that? Is that bank grass or?
There's all different types of things.
Okay.
This year, what we have found out, we got taught by some college fishermen that found some patches of eelgrass and spanked everybody pretty bad on a big tournament down there.
I did that at Lake Norman last year.
We didn't know it was there. We didn't put it there, so we don't know how it got there. And that makes my flesh crawl with people transplanting things that don't know what they're doing and everything else. But Mark is the person with the state of North Carolina that is tasked to do with that. The other guy is a guy named Dr. Brett Hardis, an exceptional good friend of mine that works for Duke. He's doing this. We're building nurseries now to grow our own plants.
Okay.
This is going to be a big pitch in the future.
And that's
So-
on Lake Norman or
Everywhere.
everywhere
In the
in the
state.
state?
Yeah.
and,
That's great.
and
We
that-
understand vegetation. Biologists are learning that.
but
fisheries
again,
biology.
that goes back to my original statement. Take your money and put it into making the fishery better before you put your money into bringing in Floridas. Put the habitat there
So
and
that-
then put the fish there.
Well, so habitat's a loaded word, right? We're talking about, you're specifically talking about cover. So
I'm
we have
talking
some questions
grass.
about here that are around bait, right? So Shane talked about the threadfin population being decimated by the hybrids.
It would be
would-
difficult for me to understand how to answer the question well, because to the best of my memory, I've been told that the fisheries folks lost their bait hatchery with
Okay.
one of the hurricanes. And if they can't do it in state, they can't buy it. It's just the money's not there.
Okay.
Again, funding.
Well, that's what he's asking about.
Fu-
Would they be better off taking the money they've raised and stocking bait as opposed to
Somebody's already putting alewives in there.
The striper fishermen put
everywhere.
out while I was in there 20 years
they're
ago.
loaded in this lake too?
They've been there for years and years and years.
The word I've been told by some of your friends is that there's a couple of guys that are driving a truck down to Santee every other week bringing them back.
Are they
Those aren't
alewives or they're
alewives.
herring?
Those are herring.
Herring.
And now
Listen,
that's been going on for 20 plus years.
herring,
I'm just telling you from
herring, and alewives. While they look the same, they act 180 degrees from each other.
Okay, and that's fine, but I mean, if you're going to start trying to lobby for bait and stocking something like threadfin or something like that, this is what Corey was talking about, where everybody's got their own fisheries.
We got to unite behind
Theory.
one, right?
And,
Right.
if nobody else takes anything else out, anything I say tonight, the biggest heartbreak that I have seen since I have been doing this, whether formally with the title or not, is once upon a long time ago, bass fishermen stuck together.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't agree, they found what they could agree on, and everybody focused it on it, and they got it done. Here, it's just there's too many different factions that are lobbying for what they want, and every single thing that you've asked me so far in just a short period of time, is, hey, you gotta have the habitat if you're gonna put the fish. I get it, chicken or egg, you know.
No, it is. But okay, so back to that. How does? Okay, we take all these different factions.
Mhm.
How do you find the common ground to say, okay, guys, look, here's what you want, here's what you want, here's what you want, here's what the ultimate goal needs to be? Because you're wearing a shirt that says conservation.
Mhm.
Guess what? Conservation without a purpose is virtually pointless.
Right. And Corey said that.
And so we've grown up. I've grown up watching ESPN, watching Bassmaster on ESPN, and they've talked about saving fish, conserving fish, making it better. On the back side of that, you have to have harvest to complete the conservation cycle. You have to have all these things to make fisheries great.
Yes.
So we've gone through the age of put them all back, make them all live, to a point now where, and it hasn't been proven on paper, so this is me just spitballing here, but we're reaching critical mass in certain biomass situations with spotted bass and so on and so forth. Okay, so what's next?
Well, my answer to that would be for anybody that really wants to know what my diving board is to jump into this, try to answer these questions, is go to bassmasters.com and look under nation, look under conservation. We have a program. It's not 1 point.
No,
it's 5 points, and it's multifaceted. It covers all the areas that you're talking about. The unfortunate fact of the matter is something Shane said earlier. You fish Norman all your life. Norman is a beast of its own.
Absolutely, it is.
Wiley is a different beast.
You're right.
What works in Norman isn't going to work in Wiley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes to the next
I agree
question.
with that.
Michael Kennard wants to know, is Lake Norman a better largemouth fishery or a better spotted bass fishery?
Can somebody stick their fingers in his ear? Lake Norman, ever since I have been in the water business without the jersey, take the jersey off for a minute, I have been consulted about the issues with Lake Norman. What Corey said is 100% correct. It is nutrient deficient.
There's
Just
some comments
like-
on here about that already.
Just like if you don't grow taters in the same ground you grow roses in, the simple fact of the matter is Norman is always going to struggle as a fishery. You can do things to help improve it, but because it does not have the base level nutrients to feed the intro level of the food chain, then it's going to struggle, period. Any clear water lake is going to do
Yeah.
that.
That's what's happened out here. This
So-
lake was a mud hole when I was a kid, and
And
they've
it was
rip-wrapped
great.
everything, and they've cleaned up the water and made it clear and all that stuff, and
Interesting question. Let me ask you that. They who?
I don't know.
Well, it's not they, anybody. It's people
It's probably
building
the
their house.
homeowners.
It's
No,
people.
it's fair. It's a good question, and I can answer it. Okay? You've got two separate people here that are working parallel with one another, and they talk, but they got different goals. You got your fisheries guys.
You got your Duke Energy guys.
You've got your water quality guys, state water quality guys,
Yeah.
EPA. And you go out anywhere now and you see this large sedimentation fence everywhere. Why? It cuts down on the sediment, but it also
Right.
cuts down on the nutrient load. They're all over the farmers about cutting back on their crops, doing this is eating in further to that, into that biomass base that's going to support the bait, that's going to support better quality fish, blah, 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 on up the line.
Well, it's the same thing. Again, back to the aquarium thing. When you first put water in there, it takes time to cycle
That's correct.
because you can't put water in an aquarium and drop fish in; they die immediately because there's not a microbiology base in there to start that food chain.
So when you dive into sedimentation, nutrients, and so on and so forth, if you take Lake Wiley, for example, and you are more than welcome to come ride with me so I can show you.
Sure.
When I started fishing, the backs of these creeks, some of these creeks, there were
Mhm.
places you could find 8, 10, 12, 13,
Right.
15 foot of water. Today,
Mm-hmm.
those places have 6, 5, 4, 3, the backs of the creeks are filling in
Correct.
because of the flow
Right.
and management of flow.
Okay, and let me try to answer your question from the water quality side again. So I'm gonna put that hat back on. I wish I'd have brought my hat. That way we could do this with some equity. What I would challenge you to do is reach down and scoop up a handful of that sediment that's filling in those things. And what you're gonna see is this stuff that looks like anything from like play sand up to BB size rock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The stuff that washed in with that, the clay sediments and some of the other more rich sediments, the peat and stuff like that, it's moved on out into the lake. It's become part of the food chain. It hasn't got anything else that's helping you anymore. It's filling in, but I don't want to say because water quality people will start hunting me too. I'm gonna sneak home tonight.
But again,
the
what you're-
goodie in the sediment is gone now, and the more sedimentation control that comes in, all you're getting is the pea gravel.
But
So
where
what do
this-
we do there? Do we dredge? Do we dig it out?
If you're not getting nutrients in,
It doesn't matter.
then the food chain's hurt.
Okay.
If you read Mr. Scott's book and you go over in some areas that aren't in North Carolina, they literally advocate putting 10, 10, 10 in the water. That ain't going to happen here.
Yeah.
But they do that. I mean, his ponds down in Pensacola, they fertilize them.
Well, that's why golf course ponds have got such giant
Yeah,
fish. in
that's
them,
right.
because all the fertilizer-
Again, so if we're trying to make the lake better,
Mm-hmm.
you got to fix all the problems.
Correct.
You can't just fix one. You
Absolutely.
can't put a Band-Aid on one. So does the problem go back to the EPA regulations as well as, because if you go
Right.
these creeks that are silted in now and they're not getting the flow they once were, the nutrients aren't coming in like they used to.
Correct.
I'm sure you can go to Norman and find the same thing in the backs of, you name the creeks.
Mm-hmm.
If you go look at that, and that's part of the problem, who's to blame for that?
Don't stir them up, you'll get in
You
trouble.
will never
Yeah.
trump EPA.
I know you. Well, again, they are the holier than thou group
Yeah.
in this situation.
So I get it, right? There's puzzle pieces to all of it, but at the same time, you can't take them all at once, right? So
Oh,
the three things we've
I
talked
think
about.
I'm hard headed enough too.
I'm with
three
him.
things-
Right?
The
Go
three
on,
things.
I'm there.
The three things we've talked about are habitat, which is cover, right? Bait, and actual fish themselves, or biomass, right?
Mhm.
So,
You miss nutrients. It's the fourth
well,
thing.
we ain't gonna be able to add nutrients because we ain't dumping 10, 10, 10 in there. All right.
Well, now that I've said it, there's probably some nut out there that's got on his
Oh, we did.
dumpster baiter, and
We
he's
did.
out there contacting Lowe's, getting a truckload of it now.
Hey,
I just
did.
know how this works. So
We did lose about half our viewers. They're probably out there buying it right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God,
But
I got
it's-
2 more years, man, and I can
so
retire.
I'm just teasing Frazier.
But
it's actually our views are actually going up.
But
so.
you know what? Don't retire because there's not many people that are willing to fight the good fight here.
Thank
You know what I'm saying? Because will I
trying.
always agree with you? Probably not. Just like you won't always agree with me.
I'm going to work with you though.
But you know what? There's an open conversation. We can say whatever we want to at
That
the
is
table.
exactly right. That's the problem. We aren't talking about this openly. We're arguing with one another about it. And again, go to the bassmaster.com, look at the conservation page list of platforms. Pick the one you like.
So, well, back
Get
to what
on
I was
that
talking about,
bandwagon.
or going to ask Frazier. So, of those three, obviously, if we've got limited funds, we need to put them all into one, right?
No.
No. Okay. So,
Mark,
all right. So that's
Mark is coming up with a habitat plan now. It's out there. He's waiting
But-
for Duke to approve it.
okay. So who do we need to contact as fishermen and as a group to help push this through? You're in conservation, right? But that's not your job, right? You're a water quality specialist for High Point,
Chief cook and bottle washer.
right? So,
See, I got my fingers in there. If
So
you're,
who-
you're going to
so
have
who
to
do-
talk to Wildlife Commission,
Okay.
and I don't mean North Carolina Wildlife Resources biologists.
okay.
You're going to have to talk to the commission.
Which is the people that tell them what they can and can't do.
Correct. So
and
where-
so then you're getting
Leslie,
the
I
political
think,
side
I
of that.
think isn't David Hoyle? Isn't he over the?
We got a new guy, and I know he's from somewhere down around Randleman, and supposedly he's listening. You got to talk, man. You got to
Okay,
get
that's
everybody
not what I'm
together.
thinking about. Then.
Well,
David Hoyle.
So how do we go about contacting these people?
Wildlife Commissioners. It's online.
Okay.
So
And then whoever on the lake, one of the biggest misunderstandings that I have with these guys out there, and I understand their point of view, but I don't think that they understand that 90% of what I do is legal. And it's translating this stuff like you're talking about that's incomprehensible to real people because it doesn't make any sense to me either, into something that you can understand. And the biggest issue is they do not understand we do not own these lakes. They belong to these power companies.
Exactly.
Their FERC permits, their Federal Energy Regulatory Commission permits, have a codicil in there that says that you've got to make it open to the public, but not in the case where something is going to retain some sort of damage or something like that from the use. All right.
Okay.
well,
So you're
There's-
going to have to talk to whoever owns the lakes too.
but again, it's there. You're right in the way that it's written. When you take Duke Energy's agreements
Mhm.
for Lake Wiley and Lake Norman,
Right.
there's X amount that the state still can control, as far as the fisheries and so on and so forth. And when I say X amount,
Yes.
okay,
yes,
X amount.
fisheries, yes.
Take it for that, for what it's worth there. But again, that doesn't mean you can't circumvent to the political side of it. And if there's a legitimate problem, take the sedimentation of backs of these creeks. Crowder's Creek, for example, these people that bought lakefront property 30 years ago that now can't get to the lake because there's no access.
Right.
Who's to blame for that? That's where you have to get everybody on board to go to the power.
There's a word for that, and I'm not going to burden this conversation with it. But from the legal enforcement standpoint, it's called non-point source. There's nobody to blame. It's just like that officer out there that watched a car go by me on 85 doing about 150 miles an hour, and he wasn't interested in me going 73. They're going to go after the low-hanging fruit with people that are violating bigger permits, waste treatment plants, CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, everything else. That trash that comes pouring in the lake and those pea-sized sediments and everything else off of city streets.
It's almost a dead-end fight.
Right. Getting it out, we looked at that with our lakes, and of course with ours, they're all water supply purpose, but the Corps of Engineers won't write you a permit to go in and take it out. Even like in a drought or something where you don't have to drop the lake level, you don't have to do anything. Just go in with dump trucks, scoop it in the back, and get it out. What are we going to do with it? Oh, can't do that because that is potentially hazardous waste with all this stuff. You know what the number one toxin in the world is in our lakes? And it affects everything in the food chain up. It's bizarre. It's the stuff asphalt's made out of, polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Number one toxin there is. And it inhibits the food chain. So what are we're paving our streets soon. Has it occurred to anybody else that we're putting more pavement out there every few years? Where's it going?
In the water system.
But it locks into those sediments. I mean, I can tell you horror stories about the stuff that we've seen, in retention ponds and things like that with base level food chain critters that were mutated like some aliens or something because of it. There's really good studies about it, but the thing about it is if you're going to take it out to improve the water volume or even the possible water quality and habitat and everything else, you've got to have some place to dispose of that as a hazardous waste. And there it becomes cost prohibitive even if they would write the permit.
It's an uphill battle.
Yes, it is.
So, well, that
We're not
brings
going to
up
solve it tonight.
that brings up a whole nother ball of wax.
We're not going to solve it tonight.
We're not. I mean,
But so you gave us some good points, right?
Sure.
So we need to unify as fishermen, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
We need to get together and we can argue about whatever we want. But when we have a meeting with our wildlife commissioners, we need to be a unified front.
I want to make
If
sure
you
you
wanna
hear
get
this
somewhere, you
loud
do.
and clear, okay? Because I have worked with professional people that coach doing this. Number one thing you want to do, get you guys in, talk to them, let everybody argue, do whatever you want to about it. But whenever you go to these commissioners, have a platform. Because the first person that says, well, I don't know, I see it, boom, you're off. That's it.
Gone.
10 minutes. The mic just went off and they quit listening. If you're not unified when you go in the room, then they don't
They're
want to
not
sit and
wasting their
fight
time.
with you. That's not going to happen.
Well, that was so I watched the online portion of that video or the meeting, and they said that in there. This is the first time that we've actually had a sit-down meeting with bass fishermen. That's not just been some knockout, drag-out argument. And we're willing to listen to you,
Yes.
right? Because people come in there, they're pissed off, and they think they know the answers, and as opposed to trying to learn from the guys that are the professionals on this stuff, they want to argue whatever, and then it's just. I've been in those meetings in a work atmosphere, and it's exhausting just trying to argue with someone, and then as soon as they're done, you got to argue with somebody else. So
I will tell you this: every 2 years at the Bassmasters Classic, we have a conservation summit. All of the conservation directors can get there, bring in their wildlife people, and we all sit down and we talk through an agenda of subjects. This year, we actually brought in a professional moderator, and what she did was go through all of the United States, remembering that we've got everything from mixtures of muskies and smallmouth to red drum and bass, in the geography of where we fish. And the number one thing that we came out of it with that everybody agreed on is that the fishermen and the wildlife people need to talk more constructively. And Corey Oakley, he's going to shoot me for this, and I know it. I'm just going to avoid him for the next 6 months. He's got a short memory. Corey is the guy that will listen to you. And if he hears something he doesn't understand, he will ask the question. I'm not sure I understand that. If it completely doesn't make sense, like putting 500 tons of tread fin in the lake that Alabama bass the size of a Coke can are going to eat in about 15 minutes, he'll tell you it doesn't make sense. You know, he's not going to argue with you. They really have made the commitment to listen. You know, but again, talk to your commissioners, talk to the people that own the lakes. I'll help you. I mean, everybody's, you know, a little bit off on this Florida project right now, but the number one thing that I want to see happen as the conservation director of North Carolina is I want our fishermen to be served. I want them listened to, and I want us doing something, and just us saying, "Oh, we can't do that. That's not going. No.
So
No, we got to start."
I like
So I
the
have-
habitat project idea,
yes.
really.
Well, I was going to have that was a question I had. So, you know, I've read Bassmaster magazine. I think I probably read more of those growing up than the books I was supposed to read in school. And I remember as a kid, there always used to be a section about conservation and the grants that were given for putting habitat in the lake. Are those still available?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we go about applying for those?
What I have done in the vacuum of not really having a good forum to talk with you guys is we've kind of made the decision in North Carolina's BASS to work through North Carolina Wildlife Resources. When I find out about the grants, I point Mark at 'em. Mark does the proposals because he's a professional grant writer.
Okay.
And he's gotten several. That's what's going on up at Sharon Harris right now. And you're seeing the fish.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
boy.
hydrilla is gone, but you're seeing the fish.
Yep.
I think that things are not moving fast enough for bass fishermen, and I understand that. Corey even said it may take a couple of years, but they're willing to put funding into a Florida project,
Right.
and not just leave it in the pockets of the fishermen.
Okay.
I'm working on corporate sponsors right now. In 2 years, when I retire, that's what I plan to do. Is just go around looking for that money.
But again, making sure that the money goes into the best served project.
Sure.
Not necessarily what I feel
Sure.
is best.
Sure. We agree.
I mean, if you sit and tell me as the head honcho here that the Florida project's the best option, then I'm on board.
I'm
but-
not the head honcho.
No,
No.
for
I'm here to
instance,
serve fishermen, all fishermen.
Okay,
but,
so-
as a for instance thing, whatever, you know, if they listen, they hear, and they see, because they're supposed to know about the lakes. You know, Fisheries Commission is supposed to know biological makeup, what the lake really needs, what it doesn't need, what it can withstand, what it can't, so on and so forth. And if they sit and say, you know what, ultimately the best thing we need to do is put habitat or whatever, you know, put that money forward going there instead of putting
So-
a Band-Aid on another problem.
So
That's
Frazier,
why they open their own nursery. Grass is coming.
Yeah.
So Fraser, a lot of this, you know, we've heard a lot of stuff like this grass stuff. None of us knew about this,
Right.
right? So,
It's on their website. That
okay,
is-
so tell us about the website. All right, tell us, because we fish, right? I mean, that's
Sure.
what we do, and you know bass fishing real well. When we suck, we complain, and it's never our
It's
fault.
never anything we done.
Right. So where can we see where our voices are being heard, right? And how do we keep
keep
communications
conversation- yeah.
and conversations going on, right? Because you've updated all our viewers tonight.
Yeah,
and
that's-
hopefully this will be
yeah.
seen 100,000 times. Understand that the state of North Carolina is actually doing something.
That is
because-
a major problem, and I want to make sure that I speak to that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if I have any criticism of wildlife resources, it's they are doing the things that you hear in Texas and some of these other places, but they're buried in this website.
Right.
Go to the website. I don't care. Just like instead of trying to search the web, go to North Carolina Wildlife Resources and search habitat. Search population studies. Search DNA studies. They're on the website.
Okay.
But they're buried so deep that I have trouble finding.
Right. Okay. So it's
So they've committed
it's
to
North
improve
Carolina
the-
Resources. Is
North
that
Carolina
what's-
Wildlife Resources
North Carolina Wildlife Resources
Commission. I mean, you won't have any trouble
Okay.
finding it. But don't search on the internet. Search on their site. Okay, and they have committed to try to improve the web presence with that
Sure.
site, because there's some fascinating stuff out there that they've done. The stuff about the Alabama spots questions you're asking. Lawrence Dorsey has done stuff. There's people in the southeast that have done it. It's the information's there. But most of the guys, I even had a guy one day tell me in a conversation on one of the social media pages, I said, here, I just gave you the explanation. He said, no, that's too long. It was about 2 paragraphs.
Right.
Friend, I'll answer your question, but you got to read it. He didn't want to be confused with facts. He already had his mind made up.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, you know how that is. People, especially,
and I don't argue with them.
Especially as bass fishermen, people want to hear, you want an immediate response.
Sure.
And I've been enlightened tonight. I have to admit that there's a lot of things that I expected totally different answers for, especially with the whole spotted bass thing. And
Thank you.
I'm the typical guy that's going to jump the gun and say, hey, this is crazy. Let's do. I mean, you've calmed me down a lot tonight.
I mean, you've literally
you have educated me tremendously tonight,
which is hard.
about things like that. I mean, no, really. I mean,
Shane, that's a good dude.
The only thing that I know is what I can physically lay my eyes on when I go to the lake. That's the information I go off of. I'm not going to go sit and read 42 pages deep into a website when I can go out to the lake and spend 2 hours doing something I enjoy and going, where's all the bait? Why? You know what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying.
And things like that that's going to be what the typical guy such as myself is going to do. We're not going to sit and spend 2 hours reading on a website when I can go out and put my hands on it and see what's what.
Understand.
And when you get your little fences with your grass growing up in it, he'll be able to see it, and now he'll see progress.
Well, I mean, now they are some of that stuff going on at High Rock right now. There's a couple places over in Black's Bottoms that in the very backs of it back there, they have some fences up.
There's a whole lot more of it than in Black's Bottoms.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just using that as an example.
But I'm just saying, bring it to Norman, bring it to Wiley, and bring it.
Mark is working on that right now.
Well, I was just saying,
promise you that.
It sounded like he's already got the plan. He's waiting for Duke to approve it.
I need to get in touch with Mark.
I'm sure.
I need to get in touch with Mark, and maybe I may have.
So North Carolina Wildlife Commission or Resources, we'll Google it, find the website.
Yeah.
I'm interested to go out there and see what's going on.
There's stuff in there. I mean, and again, probably the best project that I know of is Search the One at Wiley. Man, those guys have put the time in. And I want to be fair, because what they're doing in that nursery is they're growing different types of plants. Again, you don't grow taters in the same soil you do roses.
That's right.
And they have to go out there and kind of play around. It's underwater. They can't see it. They can't do a pH test of the soil like a farmer would do. So they've got to put stuff in places where it looks like it would work. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But those boys went out there and put fish in the boat a couple of years ago. They figured it out very quickly.
So you said there's a project with Wiley right now?
With Wiley?
Oh, I thought you said
No,
Wiley.
it's Norman.
Norman.
So I did that at Norman last year. I found a patch of eelgrass last year when it was cold. I won 2 tournaments in a row off of it, back-to-back weeks, catching them on jerkbait over top of the eelgrass.
Mm-hmm.
Went back for the 3rd week. Guess what that eelgrass was?
Dead.
Gone. 100%.
Well,
And it was a patch about the size of this room.
eelgrass
And in
is
1
very
week's time,
fragile.
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, the lady that is the super expert on eelgrass is actually from Virginia. Her name's Joan Blankenship. She's conservation director in Virginia. She's a very good friend of mine. She's learned how to propagate it. She's taught Mark. They're learning from other people. These biologists are figuring it out.
That's good, though. I mean, I understand Duke's point with the hydrilla, because you can see, a lake that has a lot of hydrilla, you see it floating. And when it floats, it might be a strand this long, it might be a strand as long as this table. Can it get in there and damage your stuff? Absolutely. But then you got places like Baden, Wateree, that has the water willow. Very, very rarely do you see it just out floating in the lake. I mean, does it? Sure, it does. It lives there.
But again, it's not enough that they can't manage it. If it happens to break loose,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'll tell you what, a year and a half ago, well, 2 years ago, you and me and Todd and a few others fished a tournament. We put the boat in the water out here at Busterboard. You cracked under the bridge, and guess what you saw? There was an island half a mile long.
Yeah.
Green grass, trees, boat docks, gazebos, and it was all stuff that was coming out of South Fork in backwater places that was getting pulled down the lake.
Well,
it's
because we had
had a massive flood, but
huge
again,
storm and everything got flushed. I mean, literally, he ain't lying. There was a gazebo floating down. Floating down.
You should
the
see
lake.
High Rock past mine. It's been interesting.
But again, on the flip side of that, guess what? Some of that grass moved. Some of that grass is still in the places it landed to this day, taking root and is growing. Not all bad.
Right, and there are a couple of new species that are getting a much larger foothold in North Carolina than we want.
You mean grass?
Yeah. Primrose and alligator wheat. Man, those things breed Lingbia, the black snot.
Speaking of black snot, we had a question
earlier
earlier about
it just
the
came
black
up again.
snot.
Where does the black snot grass on the Yadkin chain come from? And
And
how the heck did they get rid of
And
it?
I was going to add to that, and how in the world do we kill it?
You just push the geek button. If you search my name and Lingbia, then you will find
Is that the technical name for that?
Lyngbya.
Watery's full of that.
L-Y-N, spell again?
GBIA.
Lyngbya.
Oh,
If
'Cause
you
I
get
know-
close to it, they're gonna. The bottom line is that's not a plant. It's a type of algae, and the black stuff that you see is dead. The stuff that's growing is on the bottom, and it's simple to prove me wrong or right one way or the other. I always invite people to fact check me. I want them to. It's important so that they trust me. It uses that mat to regulate light penetration in the water to get the conditions it wants. Okay? And here's where we go sci-fi, and everybody's going to go, oh my God, find me something sharp, I'm cutting my wrist. There's been 3 mass extinction events on this planet. Lyngby is one of them that has survived all 3. It is a beast. John Rogers at Clemson University is the world expert on it. I have dealt with people all over the world, Australia and everything else, and we're back to potatoes and roses again. It has certain conditions that it likes to grow in. If you give it any chance at all, it will, and it will dominate it. It is virtually impossible to get rid of. There's 2 ways that we've discovered so far. One is a copper-based compound, but it's not like copper you just throw in a pond. And it will work. It has to be literally inoculated on the algae. You have to find it and put it on it. Okay? Like a sore, with an antiseptic. The other way is you can starve it to death. If you take away its conditions, if you do not feed it, it will not come. And we have found that one of the major issues is these 2 new plants. They're extremely high biomass producing. It's primrose and alligator weed. If it's got compost, and hydrilla is one of them, then it's got a toehold. And then once it gets a toehold, you have to starve it to death and just keep starving.
So that's why it's Tuckertown everywhere, because all the hydrilla.
Think about it. Have you ever seen it in the water willow?
Nope.
Around Baden Lake at the golf course, yes, but anywhere else?
I was getting ready to say, I was at Baden Lake yesterday, and places like it takes me about an hour and a half to get to Baden. So up until this year, I haven't really went there a lot. I just went this year to try to learn to fish the grass. Well, I had places over there around the golf course, whatever, that 2 months ago I was catching lots of fish out of. Well, I went to them yesterday, and that stuff is in there so thick. That's what it looks like with your phone. It's in there so thick you can't even fish anything on the bottom. I mean, you could throw a frog in the top of it or whatever, things like that. But
I'll tell you what, you didn't catch any bass around
No, I
it,
didn't
did you?
catch any.
There you go.
You can.
in the wintertime you can, because that stuff holds heat.
That's right. Now you go to Watery, for instance. Watery's full of water willow.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's 3 places on Watery that are known for that black snot grass.
Let me see if I can tell you where, and I've never been on the lake.
Okay.
Okay. One, are there large masses of houses anywhere near it?
No.
Okay. Upstream,
There's a campground close to one area, but other than that, no. There's no large masses of
how do
houses.
they get rid of their waste?
Down there, they probably pump it in the lake. To be honest with you.
Septic, I'm sure.
Yep.
Click.
Yep.
Okay. It likes. I'm gonna use the word manure to be cordial.
Yep.
But if it can find, the people in Australia have extremely big problems with it around the CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding operations. It's a major problem there. I mean, it is a real big problem. I've had the guy that is the head of the Queensland fisheries come here to the United States, and he came here and we talked about that. We also talked about our habitat project, which on YouTube, if you search Oak Hollow Fishing Trail, there's about a 3-minute video that explains my investment in habitat across North Carolina. I'm on board with Mark, so we're on board with that one. But the bottom line is the other place it might be is around someplace with a waste treatment plant, anywhere where there's a camel feeding operation upstream. It's looking for duty. If it finds it.
See
Is that why it's so prevalent in Tuckertown?
Have you ever noticed that there's not any above that CAFO that's about half a mile upstream of the graveyard ground?
Yeah,
You notice there's none upstream
I
of that?
had never really thought about that, but you're right. It's not.
Is there a bunch over in Newsome's?
I don't know where that's at.
Newsome's is if you're going back down from Graveyard towards the bridge. It's the one that's got the trailer park in it.
Okay. Yep. Used to be a giant lily pad field in there.
Used to be, I think. I think it's the term there. It used to
It's
be.
now a giant lingua.
So what
Right.
is there
exactly.
a difference between that? I've heard people call that stuff peat. Is it
No,
different?
that's nothing like peat.
It'll turn into peat.
Eventually.
Sure will. And it is a very large biomass producer, and again, it's one of those things. Is it's kind of like kudzu. I mean, or hydrilla. Once it gets in there and it starts feeding on itself and building more and more, it's like you said. You find one strand, a prop hits it, you got 10 plants minimum. Wherever it touches, whether it drops a seed or anything else. I mean, it's a beast. That's what John Rogers calls it. It is virtually impossible to get rid of, but it can be done. It's just it's going to be difficult.
Sounds like it's time to go cash in the penny jar I've had for.
Yeah.
Again, I hope that you hear this out of what I'm saying. Is it's a matter of balanced options. Yeah, on one hand, I'm saying you got to get rid of the nutrients. He found the lingbia around the golf course because that grass ain't green on its own.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, they'll
Yeah.
argue. PGA will argue
It's
with
fertilizer.
you, but I
No.
didn't say that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now. I grew up over here in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and I fished a
You
golf
ninja
course
fish a
pond.
golf course.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
wasn't much bigger than this room right
Sneak in
here.
there.
I can't tell you how many 6 to 8 pound bass I caught out of that thing.
Oh yeah.
And it stayed. I mean, they would dye it to try to kill to make it look, nice and pretty. But gator grass and that whatever it's called,
Ling-
snot grass,
yeah.
that stuff was in there. But I mean, God, you could catch a 3.5 pound bluegill in there too. I mean, it's just full of nutrients.
So I'm not from here. I'm from Memphis, and those plate-sized bluegills
Yeah.
also grow rather hefty largemouth. But the bottom line is what I'm trying to say is it's balanced. You said it. It's been said in different ways this evening. You've got to look at all those options on the table and figure out what works for that lake.
It's
Sure.
not just
Not
one
what you
Band-Aid.
want.
It's not just one Band-Aid.
No.
It's
If
it's a
it's
whole
doable.
triage kit. So
Right.
I mean,
I
at
think
this
it's
point,
doable. I really do. I mean, I look forward to the day when I can come back down to Wiley and catch some of the fish I caught early spring on rattle traps, back in some of the creeks and things.
We would all love to have that.
here's
back.
the problem is again, you're not gonna get those fish migrating until they have the right water depth and the right conditions for that to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
And you fished it back when it was prime. All I hear stories about that. I know the bite you're talking about, and I know where to do it, not in the creeks, because they don't do it in the creeks very much. I think Shane caught, what did you catch, about a 4.5, maybe 5 pounder this year, doing it. One day we were out there goofing off in one of the creek places, close to the back of the creek, kind of the last of the Mohican type spots.
Right,
It
right.
still worked.
Right.
But, man, it would be great to have that back.
It would.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're coming up on 2 hours.
Hey,
Believe it or
there's
not.
been a lot of
There has
information.
been. We've still got more stuff to cover.
I'm going to pat on my own back for this one.
You want me to come back? I'll come back.
We'd
It don't
love
matter.
for you to come back.
I mean, really,
Come on
truly.
back.
We might make this a 2 or 3 part series because it really, I think the viewers have really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it
I had a lot
helps.
of comments about it.
Well, we
a lot
have,
of
but
good information.
But there's
stuff.
been, you can tell a lot of people are listening as well because we're not getting the the friendly, playful jabs that we usually get
Right.
constantly. So
Well, there's a lot of information out there. And
Jason
again,
Land, you still suck.
the thing I want guys to understand is that I really have no power to do anything, but what I am most interested in is this jersey representing all fishermen and all fishermen's needs. I don't want to kill all the Alabama bass. You're not going to do it whether I want to or not. I'm not going to be able to get hydrilla put in the lakes, but there are options out there, and Wildlife Resources is one of the top agencies in the country.
But you're connected to the right people.
It's
help
taken
start.
36 years.
But you know what? If we can piggyback on your knowledge
Mhm.
and continue the conversation, my kids will have a chance to enjoy something.
Yeah, I hope so.
And
yeah, Michael, Frazier, we're getting. I'm sorry, I know Michael Frazier, William Frazier. We're getting a lot of thank yous, and it's very informative, great information. All these are all flood through the comments, so that's a direct.
William Frazier on Facebook. I got on a clown suit. I really enjoy talking to people, man. I end up in arguments with people, and it's a bad habit because I'm an analytical thinker. I count atoms for a living. But I really do want to try to get this coalesced. We've got this thing moving in the right direction.
Right.
We can get everybody on the same page. Even if you would like to see 17-pound spotted bass, give it up for just a second until we get a little more habitat or something. Let's get this balanced approach going, and let's
Sure.
make sure that his blood pressure medication is not the same as Shane's, the same as yours, Mike.
Hey, I'm all about a balanced approach. I just didn't want to kill all the spotted bass.
listen,
See, everybody keeps saying that.
but you know what? It's out there. It's been said.
I mean,
Well,
when I said earlier, talking about having kill tournaments and stuff like that for spotted bass, that is actually being talked about. And and I think these guys. I hope that some of them watch tonight, so they have a little better understanding, like I do myself. I have a much better understanding of the goal, now versus what I was hearing. And for that, I appreciate you coming and talking with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well,
I appreciate that.
That's the biggest thing with all this, right? I mean, social media and hearsay and
Yep.
so and so said this.
And I will say
that
this.
stuff spreads like wildfire, right? So,
He is telling the truth when he says, "Friend him, he likes to talk." I think the first phone conversation he and I had was about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes long about this very topic. What was it? Almost
well,
a year ago? Close to a year ago?
You ain't too short-winded yourself.
No, but again, when you get into a very good topic, something that needs
something interesting.
that needs to be discussed, that people are scared to say this or that.
Most of what I find is him.
What you mean?
What you said just a minute ago, and it's practical. I think who we are as bass fishermen makes us like that.
Right.
It's about cause and effect.
Yep.
If you don't catch fish, you don't compete. You don't win checks. You don't improve.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't go out there and get the results you need, you're going to take especially on tournament day, you're going to take the shortest route to
Right.
that check in your toolbox. And that's the thing. It's a knee-jerk habit that we have to tournament fish, but the knee-jerk habit can't work in management. It's got to be longer term and more thought out. So we're kind of working against ourselves. But like I said, I've got faith in it. I'm seeing it kind of make a turn, and I'm very, very hopeful with this. I think that we're going to. My goal, ultimately, what I would like to see. I got a buddy out there named Tim Cook down in Texas. I'm so jealous of Tim Cook I could scream. And there's many
Well, I
Oh,
other
can see
guys.
that. I
But
mean, they're
but again, those states have put the money and the time into their
you would
fisheries.
be amazed at what they haven't put in there that we think that they have. It's just been a simple matter of talking with their agencies and finding sponsors like Toyota.
yes.
But again, you get people on. Okay, what big corporations are in North and South Carolina that could make?
You would be surprised.
No,
Over there where he's from, dude, that place has more corporations.
It does.
But the point, where I'm going with this is not who are they, because I know they're there. It's how do we put in front of them to show the benefits of them taking this project on and where their return and investment is as far as the state tax, whatever.
There's studies and preparation, all that stuff has to be done. It can't be like this thing where we throw it together in 5 minutes, right? I mean, it takes time and effort.
It does,
and meetings
for sure.
And you got to dress for it, and you got to be professional about it. You can't just show up and have a
Go in there
a
yelling and
gripe and
screaming.
complain session,
Yeah.
and then walk out.
That's
Well,
right.
but it's
It takes
not just
time and
him.
effort.
You've got Joan Blankenship, that's the eelgrass world expert. You've got Barbara up in New York, that's the fizzer. We've got that infrastructure in place. We've got fluctuating water level people. Earl out in New Mexico, man, he has lakes with water in them one month, and the next month they have none. There's people out there. The information base is there, and we're talking. We want to bring this back. I want to see North Carolina when they start talking about where top-notch tournaments are at. They're not talking. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Tim. Tim and I cut up with one another all the time. He's a good friend. He's a good supporter. I support him. He supports me.
But again, they're doing it right.
Florida, Texas,
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
Alabama.
Jason Henniger, man, I met him this year at the Classic. This guy is a warrior. He's
got a fight on his hand.
But
With that daggone
he's getting
cart.
it done. He's
Those,
getting it
whatever they're called.
That's
Asian
all-
jumping
that's
carts.
a whole nother
But
episode.
there again, at the end of the day, those three places all have one common factor: grass.
Yes.
You can't argue that. That's
Grass.
not arguing.
No, because people say, "Oh man, he hates grass." No. Find me a stick of grass and I'll beat it to death all day long
That's
for
right.
that one fish over 16 pounds.
Yep.
So I agree with you. Thank you, guys.
Well, Brandon, you got a couple of points else.
You want to talk about the
Tournaments.
tournaments? You want to cut it short tonight?
We'll save that for next time.
All right. I'm tired.
We've been here 2 hours.
Hey,
My
you
brain
know what?
supper
Though?
time. It's supper time.
Man, I got frozen pizza waiting for me at the house.
There you go. Well,
So, since you're tied to the federation, we will talk about those. So, the North Carolina
Oh,
State
yeah.
qualifiers
Mhm.
for the Bass Nation Federation are coming up. They're actually, with COVID, they had to cancel all the stuff and they've rescheduled them. So, they're usually 2-day tournaments, but this year they're doing 2 one-day tournaments. The first one's October 9th on Lake Norman, and then they turn right around and fish October 10th on
High Rock.
High Rock. I know there's one coming for the Trent Noose as well. They always go up there for some reason, but they have not announced the date for that yet.
I think what it is they won't let Chuck Murray fish at Gaston.
Probably not. So, if you're
If you
interested
saw
in
any of his
that,
posts this weekend, that's about accurate.
if you're interested in that, that is that's the only way, I guess, that the working man can make it to the Classic. Reach out
I've
to Chuck
qualified
Murray.
for the Eastern Regional one time, and I promise you this: I've seen a lot of the other tournaments. It's a Cadillac operation.
Yeah.
It is a neat deal.
So Chuck Murray heads all that up for us, North Carolina.
Chuck's
right?
the Federation president.
So if you don't know him, you can find him online too. He's real easy to find on Facebook. He typically is holding up trophies and money from Gaston or Kerr
Or killing deer.
or killing deer.
Or trapping beavers.
and
I
he-
don't know what that's all about, but he does it.
He can
A
help
lot.
You, he can help you get signed up for that if you're interested in it.
We have a Facebook page, North Carolina Bass Nation. It's
Okay.
out there too, and that information's all out there on it,
right.
including the stuff about the Trent News that's out.
Okay, North Carolina Bass Nation.
Yes,
right?
but it is
Okay.
not NC. It is North,
North
Carolina.
Carolina. Okay. All right. The rest of this stuff we can talk about later. Hopefully Shane and I will be talking about the Palmetto Trail on
We
Monday.
bringing home all of our money.
Yeah.
when is
Make-
that?
That's this coming weekend.
Yeah.
If Shane and I win both Saturday and Sunday, you might be doing this by yourself. on
Yeah, we
Monday.
probably won't be here next week.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going, but we'll find somewhere.
Why wouldn't you take me along? I mean, come on.
Somebody's got to do the work.
Yeah. We just have to do the podcast remotely.
That's it. That's it. All right, Rusty Hooks Live. Well, our hooks may be rusty, but our points are always sharp.
Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. I'll have this up online. Well, it's on Facebook Live already, but I'll actually have last week's episode up as well on your favorite podcast player by tomorrow morning, and you can find us on YouTube at Rusty Hooks Live. Again, our giveaway, guys, don't forget.
You can still get entered.
You can, for one. Okay, so the Waterwood crankbait, the SL Special,
Mm-hmm.
was won by Mike Hicks. Look up the store number here. What is your store number?
803-831-0251.
There you go.
Mike knows how to get in touch
Okay.
with the store.
And then Mike Langford, you won the 1,000 likes. That's only week 3 of 5. If you're interested in getting registered for that, you have to scroll down on our posts, find that post, like it, share it, and drop us a comment because we got 2 more weeks worth. And
awesome stuff.
Of awesome stuff. That AFCO 50% off thing, that's and Big Bites, that's ridiculous. But catch us next week. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Mr. Frazier, thanks for coming tonight. We would love to have you back again.
Make the call.
I can do
And anybody that's still left on here, if you have any questions for William or Frazier, I'm sorry, I keep calling you William.
Sorry. Okay.
Frazier, you can leave them here, but probably the best way to get in touch with you is on Facebook. Is that correct? Okay.
Or I can get them to him, and we can continue this discussion
Okay.
over the next several weeks. I'm not saying he's going to be back next week, but we will have him back in the near future.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll throw this out there too. If a group wants to get together and talk about, where our bracket is or something like that, I'm sure I could talk to Eric down at Bass Pro Shops, and maybe we could set aside the conference room down there or something like that once
Sure.
the season's over with. I'll meet with them face to face. Don't matter.
Okay.
So,
We could do that live from there. That'd be cool.
Heck yeah, that'd be good.
We get good participation in person and online.
And we can put it on live and manage it. And
Yeah. Take some questions
Make sure-
that way.
Hey, Liz, I'll tell you
Make
what,
sure it don't
I'll
turn
do-
into shouting match.
Yeah.
I'll do you one even better. Bring him to the store. Aisles move. We can get X amount of people in here.
Yeah, we had a cornhole game in here.
Oh, we did. We had a cornhole game in here, so we can do anything. All you gotta do is say the word.
Yeah, so we'll figure
Whatever
it out.
it takes.
That sounds like a good idea. We'll figure that out, and we'll make sure and share it. And
Corey's a good resource. We might be able to get Mark on here and come talk about habitat.
that would be great.
That would be.
That'd be great. This is something as us anglers, we know we've been here for a while, and we know our fisheries are declining, and obviously it's a hot button for us, right? Because we want to continue to catch fish.
Shane, you want to take that last comment?
Carson.
No, Carson, we are not. Somebody may, but I won't be involved.
And you know what? I hope Lake Norman does rebound, because when I go out here and fish my South Carolina lakes for largemouth and suck, man, it is a really good ego booster and confidence builder to go up there and catch 100 spotted bass.
But you know what? The conversation doesn't stop at Norman. There's big things coming in South Carolina. I've hit on it before. That there's an episode coming up where we'll unveil everything that's going on, and it goes hand in hand
maybe-
with this.
Frazier, do you know where the conservation guy for South Carolina is based out of?
I do not. The person that I stay in contact with is the state president, Randy Mosley,
Okay.
and he's a great dude. Great dude.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get.
He and I work very well together.
Okay.
Let me have some time. We'll have a nice lineup of
Okay.
guests
Yeah,
involving
because
this.
we're right on the border, so we have a good bit of viewers in North Carolina and South Carolina. Well, I say that.
Yeah.
Heck, we got some in
I have one.
South Africa and Australia
Awesome.
and Ireland.
But really and truly, at some point, I do want to have a come together, some North Carolina guys and some South Carolina guys to sit down, because guess what? That beast right there is both y'all's problems.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, it is.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
for however many years, nobody's ever worked hand in hand. For the most part, there's always been a little bit of bucking heads. Let's put that to bed. And
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting, since you guys have kind of committed to this, and a lot of guys that are on the podcast and everything else. It's going to be a little bit of a discovery. It's going to take more than 2 paragraphs.
Yep.
oh yeah,
There's more players, so I
No,
hope
this is-
everybody will commit.
This is very interesting for us. I told you we were going to have a lot of questions for you, but once you started talking, I believe we started learning, and we started listening a whole lot more when we were going to talk. So
Well, I apologize for that, because
No.
No, that's great.
don't
It was
ever
great.
apologize for
don't ever
that.
apologize.
Yeah, it was
We
great.
was-
As long as the guys feel like they're served and I'm representing all of their needs, the guys that like spots, the guys that don't like spots, and anything else, that's what I want to be. Because I want to be that person in the middle that can get us all together. That's all I care about. I don't even want to be in charge.
Sure.
let them do it. Just like Michael and these guys have taken the ball and run with it there. That's fine. I'm not looking for accolades. I'm not looking for headlines. Just as long as our fisheries are better.
Yeah. Well, you can hang your head high on the way home. I think I've seen at least 7 or 8, maybe even as much as 10 is good show, great show. Thanks, very informative. And we typically, when Shane gives secrets, we might get 1 or 2 of those. But
Again, thank you guys for asking me.
Yep.
It's just been great.
Thanks, Frazier.
So.
All right, we'll sign off again since we technically did 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
But catch us next week, and I'll have this up. Again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.